All right, good morning. Jesse, you want to go ahead and put up the, without the names of the organizations, well, the organizations and the average scores without the names of who
Oh, yeah.
did what.
Easy, easy. Do you want the amounts as well?
Let's hold on the amounts.
Okay. Give me one moment then, please. All right, ready to go.
Oh,
That's very small.
that is very small. Even I can't see that. All right.
Guess we'll put by size. Very small organizations.
Okay.
Mediums.
Maybe you're right. Right?
These would be large. I'm just trying to get
Get them all in here.
all of them on there. K, yeah, KGW is the last one that you guys agreed to fund. Active Agent Envision did score less than 60 on their application, but you guys have already decided not to fund those two organizations.
Could you go back up to the top, the small, please? 60 is,
Would it help if I hand score by score?
I think, the lowest one we have right now showing is a 60.
Yes.
7.
60.7 is our lowest. You can see
That would be the other two.
Active Agent and Envision were below 60.
I guess if we're happy with the 60 being bottom, we want to bump that up then.
I'll open that for discussion by the group.
Yeah.
We good with those? Well, did we want to go, right now, we have scores that are 60 and up. Did we want to raise that threshold? Like, do we want to say anyone who didn't score a 70 or higher is not considered for funding, or are we good with where we are?
So you let me metal playing with the 349, right?
Right.
That 350.
424.
424.
430.
422.
Yeah, 422.
708.
I'm good with 60.
Is everybody good with 60? Okay, let's go. Harvester Arts, what did we see as pluses, minuses?
Are we doing the pro and con?
Yeah, and then we'll do the dollars.
I think they used that pandemic time to their full advantage in the way they reorganized themselves. I think has served them really well.
And they're certainly innovative in their programming.
Yes.
I thought they, you know,
I also think that of all organizations that we fund, they provide a true economic impact directly to artists, where they consistently raise the bar for, how artists are able to interact with Wichita and gain income from it.
I also like the fact that they had a good methodology in place for capturing both qualitative and quantitative measurements.
And I liked in their marketing, although other places may do it, they were one of the few that could Spanish outlets.
On the cons, I'm still not quite sure they understand the outcome of some of their, what the perceived outcome they wanted of some of their projects were used, in particular, like a city where. I tried to give them a couple softball questions with that, and even the art museum and how that benefits, and didn't feel they had a solid answer for those. On what they were hoping to achieve with it, other than kids doing art or getting touched by it.
Based on what they're doing with the metrics.
Yeah, well, yeah, I
The
guess so.
impact that
The
they're
impact
having in
they're
their
having.
youth programming.
I was hoping for giving them the opportunity for their project, which on paper sounds like good, a city where, but what was their perceived outcome from that project?
And then this is one, they're not the only one that this is a problem with, but, their revenue is primarily from consulting fees, so they don't have really quote unquote an earned income from, individuals. And along that same line, it was difficult to really determine their financial, or at least for me to determine their financial status of that organization. Because 990, is the recap 990 that really doesn't tell you anything. Their statements of revenues and expenses are done on a cash basis, so I really don't know what's coming out after them. So it's really hard to ascertain their financial viability. I'm having sympathy pains for you. Anything else as it relates to Harvester Arts that hasn't been covered?
What was their average score?
77.3. So they overall, the group scored them pretty well.
Pretty good, especially for a small.
Stephanie, do you remember off the top of your head what the highest was? I see an 83.8.
It was exploration place again.
88. Okay,
Yeah.
so we're going from a high of 88 to a low of 7.
Yeah.
So pretty much in the middle of the pack, Jerry, as far as score on this.
But noticeably the highest of the smalls.
Right. Excuse me. Opera, Kansas. You guys need to put the brakes on me because I'm just gonna keep trudging through unless you guys go, whoa, Beth.
What I have here, for those of you who didn't hear as I was stating it, these are just either rewritten from your comments in your reviews or copy and pasted directly. So if you see something on the screen that you don't agree with, please let me know.
I think two notes. One, that I thought the programming was creative, but the reach is small.
Yeah.
And then, as a con, they really need representatives coming to the Q&A that know enough about the organization to answer our questions.
That was huge.
I thought they wrote a good application, especially for a small organization, and demonstrated financial growth and stability. And I also thought they had, since it's one of the categories that seems to always come up, I thought they were innovative and meaningful in their collaborative programming and locations. However, I did think they demonstrated limited economic impact based on attendance and earned income data.
Yes, I should say, since we do have some new people, they do receive these paragraphs when they are told about their scores or what they've earned and, what their score is. So, and I rewrite it. It's not just, it's not this. But yeah, it's not just shorthand and Jesse's stream of consciousness. So, any constructive criticism you have. We'll go.
And that's a good point because Jesse will put this all together. Our next meeting will be to review and make any, I'm not gonna be concerned about his commas and his periods and, that sort of thing. But I think we need to make sure that it accurately reflects what we did, because that's what will go not only to the applicants themselves, but also to the council members. Good point. Thanks, Jesse.
No problem. I realized, I was like, maybe everybody doesn't know why we're doing this.
Any other comments that we have on Upper Kansas?
One thing that, I mean, this is kind of across the board with several different organizations, but I feel like when we're talking about economic impact, there should be some number. There should be some type of number there where they say like, this is the type of economic impact that we're having. I think they did a decent job at describing, better than a lot of organizations, but still, they should be able to say something that they've actually done, some type of number that they can put in there to say, we've actually made this type of impact within the economy.
But how do you
How do you figure
how do
that?
you calculate that?
Well, I think there's different studies that you can reach into in regards to that. Like as a gallery, I have to consistently look at, like what galleries typically do and different websites that I can go to find some of that information. But in addition to that, I'm also going to be like for every artist, for every painting that I sell, I'm going to be looking at how much for ticket sales, for example, and then for like how many people are coming to me that are also visiting the other organizations there at Revolution. Like I'm paying attention to things like that. I can provide some type of.
I get that, but I think that's why they're giving us attendance numbers and income numbers, and
That's true.
because you can't extrapolate economic impact for everything.
I think small organizations in particular have trouble with it. I have higher expectations from
Expiration, please, thank you.
Yes, to
Yeah.
provide that for Opera Kansas, I'm happy they can turn the lights on, so.
Yeah.
That's true.
Yeah.
Any other comments on Upper Kansas that maybe are not reflected up above? Okay, Jesse, back to the Excel spreadsheet. I don't know where we're going now.
I've got them all in order on the.
Wichita Chamber Corral. So what I wrote down for the corral is that they submitted a solid application. They had good performance benchmarks and greater financial stability with their reserves. Also strong board rotation policy and recruitment methodology.
I agree with that. I also, I liked their collaboration efforts, like with the Rise, and
Yeah.
but that was great in the children's body.
That was something I paid attention to. I kind of know it was too.
And going along Anthony's line, you know, really general, they're not the only ones. They're really general comments about economic viability and quality of life. It's like, it's really hard based on what they told us to be able to.
And I think they're an organization that the pandemic just totally shut down. I mean, and they're showing positive actions to rebound from that, I think, yeah.
I think their increase just over the past couple of years was huge. I mean, to go from 0 up to 600 in their paid attendance numbers is,
Yeah.
I think that's very commendable.
Anything else on the chamber corral? Josie, you're telling me the next one in score order is a Rise? Oh, hey, this could go really fast, folks.
Sat on my couch last night, got this all set up.
I thought their choice to help nonprofits with fundraising was a really creative way to create awareness about their organization. And I don't see it there, but I thought they also had some nice collaborations with other arts organizations.
Well, and they also, you know, especially with Arts Partners, Juniper and Holy Savior, I mean, their collaborations are really strong to get the next generation. To see.
I like that they address that they need to address that.
Submitted a good application and demonstrated sustainability, but that's mainly due to their nice financial reserves.
Yes.
I do have some concern about their declining attendance numbers. They have never been one in the past that attendance year to year has always climbed. And the trend, if I remember the application correctly, is the last 2 years have been decreasing as opposed to increasing. Even, you know, I would expect it to be rebounding coming out of COVID, and it's not.
And looking at the application, that's something that is interesting to me because to say that they did more to help organizations and the attendance went down makes me think that maybe just the attendance wasn't captured. And even with, there was one question in here, I can't remember, they answered it, but they answered it in a way to say, hey, we're doing great things, as opposed to answering the question. And I can't remember exactly which question it was. But I feel like that was an opportunity to address how they were getting more people to pay attention to the rise. And I also saw their name in other applications. There were at least two other
Right.
applications. So that just, it makes me think maybe the information isn't being captured, which I think is a huge missed opportunity.
The other thing I wonder about on those numbers, attendance numbers, is in 2022 is the year, the last one reported, and it was down. That was also the year that they were raising money to go ahead.
Good, yeah.
But they also had an increase in unpaid admissions in
Yeah.
2022, so their
Right.
unpaid has gone up. So to kind of like the capture point, I believe that could be where it is. And unless that paid admission, I should have asked that question if that's referring to their Martin Luther King Day breakfast.
Well, and I was wondering, you know, because one of the questions I didn't get an opportunity to ask it was, when you do something with these other groups, are you counting their numbers in attendance? And I don't think they are. I think potentially if they are, it might be in that unpaid, so that they're not taking credit
Credit.
for, I'm not taking credit for what Dom's really done,
Right.
you know, type of thing, which is, I think, a plus, but they have gotten in front of people.
Right.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
Well, I
it's
think
kind of,
also where a big missed opportunity could come there is like, if, let's say I'm going to partner with another organization, especially on something that they've done year over year, then I'm going to try and figure out, like, did I bring additional people? Are there more people at this one potentially because of me than there were at your last one? And that could help a lot in regards to your data.
I also felt like a missed opportunity, and maybe I just missed it in the review, but I felt like in their answer on the youth programming, they have one sentence. It's like, oh yeah, by the way, we provide financial support to college students through this whole Rising Star program.
Yeah.
You're gonna give me one sentence on that? Like, tell me more.
and you assume you know what Rising Star program is, right? Yeah.
That feels like it's probably loaded with great information about the impact they're having with that, but I don't know. You gave me one sentence.
Just as a positive or a suggestion for them, they might want to review their application thoroughly before submitting. Maybe they would have caught that, but there were also some in some of their forms where when the second page happened, it was missing some information that was required. So,
Their tables were too with staff and board,
yeah.
which when we ask for it, just write NA or acknowledge it somehow, like blanks just make.
They missed occupation or business, you know, put retired.
Right.
And
There was no start date. Yeah. Yeah, something.
Got a lot to say about Rise that isn't filmed.
Any other comments about Arise? Next. Jazz Festival.
Double checking.
Average score.
68.3.
Well, I probably was the only one, but I thought their application was really weak. I garnered way more information from the Q&A about what they were doing than from the application.
Yeah, they're one that I thought helped themselves a lot.
I noted that too. Several times I commented, would have liked more details, not really answering the question, not much here to work with.
And my note was that they gave specific answers during the Q&A, difference from the application, that they just didn't answer the application.
Yeah, they didn't, they're not the only ones. We have a lot of them that they didn't even really attempt to address economic impact or quality of life.
But these were like basic facts. They weren't
Yeah.
even.
They're an organization that I think could have better detail about their economic impact. Bring in musicians,
Yes.
you know, they know the number of people that they could bring in. They don't have the excuse of a lot of them, in
And
my opinion.
my beef with some, particularly them, was that performance benchmarks, again, saying that their measure of success is having a successful festival. When you have, again, you say you have the ability to say a successful, one of our benchmarks is attendance, is dollars raised, is the educational aspect, and they didn't put in the application or even have a way to answer that in the Q&A.
Yeah.
Any positive
I
feedback?
know, I'm trying to think.
I like what they do. No, I have trouble with their financials too, folks. I mean, those were not profit loss statements that we received. And even if you would have accepted them and said, okay, it was like a dump of what's in, not even a dump of what's in the checking account. There's no tie profit loss to the balance sheet. I mean, this is one that, I really had trouble. I personally had trouble funding because it was just so void in so many areas, so.
Now for a positive thing, the open to all free educational aspects on Friday is good. They have it open to high school kids and just lovers of music in general, trying to spread that.
That was positive that I pointed at as well.
Yeah.
Willingness and the thought process, the simplistic thought process they have of like getting in and engaging with you, I think is admirable.
They've shown solid attendance growth post-pandemic.
I can't help you here. Because, I heard that, but when you ask how many paid groups and they indicate they have X number of
Yes.
paid groups and there's no dollar figure with it, how can you say that? No, I'm being honored. I know, I'm trying. It's just,
When we had the help sessions, did they send somebody?
I believe the person who wrote their grant attended, but she's not necessarily directly affiliated with the group, just as
I mean, it just.
starting out as a grant writer.
It seemed to me as kind of a first-time organization they really would have benefited by spending some time with somebody.
I think that they need to understand how important that application is. answering these questions to the best of their abilities.
It would be their partnerships with the Wichita Art Museum, Prairie Pines and Bartlett Arboretum.
Mhm.
And then they pointed out at the art museum, they were able to do Art Venture Family Days and Art Chatter, which put them in front of new youth and family audiences. It must be a pretty good jazz band to be invited back over and over and over. It said 16 times, 16 times this. I heard once.
We've got a lot of
They're
good
good.
jazz
They
things.
They didn't do themselves credit with this application.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a lot that we've written.
I also like the fact that they hired a professional marketing group.
Professional what?
Marketing group, they hired Colmia Marketing.
Oh, yeah.
The jazz festivals never really had a professional marketing group behind it, so
Yeah,
I think that'll make a big
and
difference.
they indicated that she's already made an impact. That's good.
Thank you for bringing that up, because I'd actually like to compare that to just other organizations, even medium and large organizations. A lot of times here are just very hesitant to go out and hire someone to help with their marketing. They kind of shoot in the dark, use Facebook. So that is huge.
Box is yours.
Anything else regarding the Wichita Jazz Festival? Metropolitan Ballet.
I don't have a pro necessarily, but for the con, my note is, I couldn't tell if they didn't understand the questions or if they were just choosing not to answer the questions.
Yeah.
I'll soften that.
Yes, please do.
Yeah.
I would like to give them benefit of the doubt that they just didn't understand what we were asking.
Yeah, and I think you can give lots of examples to that. They basically did a dump of the revenues and expenses by category as opposed to giving any type of financials. It was kind of like, oh, you want me to upload something? Here you go. So, you can't determine an operating reserve. You can't, there were a lot of questions that I could not score them well on because of the information that they did or did not provide.
Did they attend the meetings? Wasn't, to our knowledge, they did not attend any
Oh,
other
the training.
our training sessions.
And I think they lacked collaboration. I don't recall any collaboration.
They mentioned one in the Q&A with Big Read with the library.
And that's Wichita Children's Hospital and working with. How did she work?
And they requested funding for production costs.
Just with child.
Yeah, there, of the three top collaborations, the last one is just collaboration with area communities to promote and present park performances.
Yeah.
That's just a sentence.
Mhm.
Another thing that I have a consistent issue with is target audience. The audience is all Wichita area. It's not a very good.
That's a target.
And the surrounding area.
Easy to hit. I mean, painful.
You don't know who your target audience is, you don't know how to expand.
Need a marketing.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, it can make it very tough in regards to growth.
Any other comments for Metropolitan Ballet?
We gotta find something.
I would say I appreciated, They did mention that they try to recruit dancers of color from other areas, from New York and Memphis, and bring them to show the diversity of ballet dancers in the art. That's good. That's good.
Yeah, okay, here's one. And their performances in the parks appear to be well received based on from the general public.
Yeah, I think that's about it.
I can stretch things, it's fine.
You may have to.
No spelling errors, no. Okay, who's the next one?
They spelled Wichita right?
Wichita, correct?
They spelled Wichita correctly. Make ICT.
I'm sorry, it's McCormick.
McCormick, I'm sorry.
What was their average score?
McCormick?
Yeah.
62.1.
But what about Metropolitan Ballets?
Metropolitan Ballet was 64.2. These are the lower end of
Hold that
this.
for just a minute so I can.
Happy to linger here for a while, but if you need or want.
I think ICT is the last one in this group, right?
That is correct.
Okay. Okay, should we go to make ICT?
McCormick.
Right.
Okay.
Just keep trying to push
You
it.
just don't wanna,
I don't want to address it, no. Okay, they had significant growth in their attendance numbers, but they're still really low. And then they do have a 3-month operating reserve, but I'm concerned with the amount of restoration that's needed for the building. And I know that doesn't really, not that we're paying for restoration, but that could keep them from doing operations.
So their attendance is increasing, but it's because they hosted some special events.
Yeah.
I mean, that museum's technically not open to the public. You'd have to call and have somebody meet you there, to go through.
That was a very big concern of mine, even during the Q&A. The idea that, no one's there on a regular basis. You have to know who to call them, and then that person has to evidently get other people that come to have different areas. It seems like a very big red flag to me.
Well, they do have some strong measurements for determining success, but they didn't address their board structure. And I think, Anthony, to go along with what you're saying, I think their long-term viability is questionable.
Yeah.
There's only so long that your passion for that can carry you, and I applaud it.
Yeah, but they even indicated in the Q&A that they were kind of leaning toward one particular person there. She decides to take a vacation. She gets sick. Anything happens to where she in particular is not there to open the place, what happens? I was also pretty concerned about the fact that in their collaborations, they consistently lean toward, like, who can help us finish building this building? That's a bit concerning. Especially in regards to the type of application this is. For you to keep leaning back in that direction, as opposed to, these are the other organizations, these are the things that we're doing that's actually making an impact in our area.
It's where they qualified to receive.
4,000
You-
change.
Was it 4,000?
4,005.
I could look it up, but I'd accidentally reveal.
Yeah, he actually has it up, so I just cheated, but yeah.
I had to, I was just questioning my own.
Yeah.
spreadsheet.
No.
I think another pro is that they do have a good sized board. And I think what they describe in the answer, that like Beth said, they don't answer like the question, but it's clear they're very committed for it. They're excited
They're
about
very
it.
passionate.
Yeah.
And they are very aware of who their audience is, as targeted as it is.
Okay, moving right along.
Sorry.
Okay,
Yeah.
no, you're fine. Make ICT. All under the adjectives and adverbs, right?
Yep.
Is strong financial reserves.
Okay, this, I'm gonna say it, but I might sound dumb. So their mission statement didn't really tell me what exactly they do. It didn't say art.
That was something that stood out to me throughout the application even. They're not even, this is arts and culture, and
Yeah.
they're not even talking about arts and culture anywhere in the application, which makes it feel like they don't believe it, you know? Like,
Yeah, I feel like it's there, like they could have sold that, but like they
Absolutely.
didn't.
I feel like
Yeah.
they really got very close to the line of saying, we promote art. Like very close several times, but.
But they didn't.
say it. So,
Yeah,
They have
struggle with
they have a
that.
gallery in the space.
yeah,
What did you say, Jesse?
I said they have I'm not arguing for or against them. I just find that interesting because they have a gallery in the space.
yeah. I mean, and a lot of the equipment that they use, it's used to do art. So,
Yeah, well, and they talk about in their, USD 259 programs that they're using STEAM, so art is in there.
right.
But
And in the Q and A, we asked who their target audience, they do mention, people that want to work in the shop, artists, engineers, and plumbers.
Yeah,
yeah,
And ours was that, so.
I feel like their application should have been more
Yeah.
geared toward art.
Yes.
Yeah, this is one of the ones I was on the fence on whether they fit for funding or not.
My note was the strongest comment was what was already mentioned about the USD 259 education, imagine. It was only 3 classes, but it's a start.
If we do fund them, I questioned, they wrote that it would fund low-cost hands-on programming for Wichita school groups. Programming to me, not operational, so I just want clarity on that if we do decide to fund them.
Yeah.
I have a note that says 5,000 could fund a part-time independent contract janitor.
yeah, they've got several things listed under their use of city funds.
Yeah.
Any other comments about Make ICT? Okay, we're moving right along to the meeting. Well, I'm sorry.
Can we add the potential to be more arts focused via focusing on the A and STEAM?
Yes, because when I first read the application, I didn't want to fund them. I didn't think there was any time. You know, the Q and A helped me a little bit.
Reflecting on funding exploration place helped me a little bit with them. A science museum versus Make ICT.
But they do lots of art. They've got lots of studios.
got
They
lots,
just
yeah.
don't.
And they
And then talk
collaborate
about
with a lot of other artists in town.
Woodworking is art.
Yeah.
Sure.
I'm not sure that they see themselves as.
Well, they've got Mr. Ramsey on their board. I mean, clearly they're doing art.
Fiber artists and, like I said, the
Right.
problem is not that they're not doing it. The
Yeah.
problem is that they just didn't gear
They
their
didn't-
They
application.
didn't. I think it was the lens of whoever wrote the application and the people who came to talk to us.
Yeah.
Yes.
And they could have been more strategic.
So they need to remember what they're applying for.
Yeah.
Okay, moving right along.
Scroll.
No, you're fine. Valley Wichita.
You'd like to see the scores.
Yes.
Here are our mediums and their scores.
What is that, 80?
83.8. Friends of the Great Plains Nature Center at 74.2. Forum Theater Company at 68.7. Wichita Grand Opera at 68.4. And the Regina Klinjowski Dance Company at 64.4.
Okay. Valley Wichita.
I felt like this was one of the strongest applications I read. Because they had the clarity, they had the detail. Only did they tell me what the performance benchmarks were, but they told me how they are doing on those performance benchmarks. And I think this could be a good model for how organizations should write applications.
I will just note, this was our second highest scoring application
They
overall.
have, I know we're in this year, but when I look back at the progress that they have made
Yes.
in not only their application, but in what they're doing, I think they should be the poster child on how to turn it around. But anyway, their collaborations are incredibly strong, and they've really thought out of the box in how to go to the next level. I mean, I wish I could be an fly on the wall in future applications just to see how their career pathway with dance goes and the results that some of those things. So
It's open to the public.
well, yeah, send me a reminder, I'll come and sit in, but anyway. Cause yeah, I'm with you. I was very impressed with this application.
I was too, my overall comment was that they conveyed a thoughtful and strong business approach.
Well, and I thought them reaching out to the Kansas City Ballet during the pandemic was genius.
I am looking forward to the decision on whether they can move it to library.
I think we all are, including them.
I think I already know the answer, but can't wait to.
Well, another thing that I thought was really great, was they came in without their executive director. And they still, I thought, did a really good job in the Q&A. So every person was prepared, they knew what they were there to do.
They understood the mission. That was very important.
And I'm glad we have the chance to dance comments on both sides, because I thought it sounds like a great program, but I would have liked to have known a little bit
Yeah.
more about it.
Can we edit that? It came in without executive director due to an unfortunate conflict or something, so that when city council reads it, they're like, what?
Yeah, and to me, the key is the group was very well prepared.
Still,
Even
great.
often these groups just rely on one person to do everything, and
And they didn't have, based on their own application, they didn't have a huge economic impact, but they came in with quantitative data,
Yes.
which it was like, woo-hoo.
And those are the small things. The big difference. They understand the amount that the audience increased, and they understood what they had to work with like this. I think they did a really good job of coming up with those numbers.
Anything else on Valley Wichita? Okay, obviously, this is the ladder that we're measuring everybody else by, right? No, I'm sure. Who do we have next, Jesse?
Friends of
Friends?
Great Plains. Great Plains.
I thought they submitted a solid application. Their attendance numbers and revenues are increasing. The only thing is, I think we do need to pay attention that earned income is a small percent of their overall revenue.
Yeah, and
What was that, Beth? I'm sorry.
Earned income is a small percent of their overall revenue. They also had great, quantitative measurements for their economic impact, although they don't know where Michigan comes up with it either. So,
They did really take advantage of the spot where we asked them to describe their organization's operation. Detail, but I would rather have that than somebody who's like, we operate day to day. You know?
I saw that one, I said,
I actually, when I saw that, I actually closed it, went to someone else at first, and I said, not ready to do that.
They were like, this is what we have for breakfast on Wednesday.
See, and I still struggle with their numbers being the actual Great Plains Center's numbers for attendance and not them from a foundation level. That always gives me heartburn for this organization is describing their impact as a whole and not that of the Great Plains Nature Center. I mean, even the people that come in are Great Plains Nature Center staff and not necessarily the foundation. It's the same thing we struggle with all the time.
Right.
Yeah, this is one of the tricky ones with the foundation side of things, because the Friends is the center, because it is a co-op between so many different agencies, that they're really acting as one unit. And this is the unit that is the operating unit, but their 501c3 status is the Friends.
Right.
So it doesn't read well on paper.
No.
And it's taken.
It's,
staff a
it's,
year
this
to
one
figure
is
it out.
different from the other foundations because it's so inextractable.
So they don't necessarily have a single parent organization. It's really. That makes sense.
Our eyes get crossed when we
What-
read too much about
But
it.
I do think that's challenging for them. I think that's something that they need, maybe in the intro, they spend a little bit more time explaining that, where they've got an opportunity to explain it. Because it is, one of the comments I have, everything related to programming, quality of life, economic viability appears to be the result of the Great Plains Nature Center, not the Friends of the Great
Right.
Plains Nature Center. So it's still, even after all these years, it's still very confusing as to who's on first. Having said that, I think they make a strong argument for how the money will be used to support the Great Plains Nature Center. So,
So on that point, what are their funding buckets right now with this current structure they have? Where are they pulling money from a city and county level?
I mean, that would be up to
Okay,
them
just-
to provide the narrative and whether the Friends is their DBA and how they operate the whole organization. That would be up to them to provide that narrative. So they don't have a single parent organization in the way that some do. So if we look at the WSU affiliates that apply under the foundation, where WSU might be the parent, but they act independently, this one does not. They act in collaboration with two federal agencies, county and
State.
city, and then the nonprofit.
they
that
have
kind of-
state funding too.
And
so
state, thank you. So maybe it's 4, but so the Friends is kind of their DBA of like everyone together, but that would be up to them to provide that narrative to explain.
So along those lines, they are a true collaborative. I mean, so they should, I don't know if we have any positives about that, but they are a true collaborative in how their whole structure is organized. But yet it makes it very difficult to understand.
Yeah, and in this setting, it makes it hard to really think about it in the landscape of arts and cultural funding, and where they fit within our cultural plan, because comparatively, the botanical gardens are not eligible. And they're same but different, right? We have city staff at Botanica, we have city staff at Great Plains Nature Center, but one is written very clearly and one exists within that gray window to where they are an eligible applicant, but they do receive city funding elsewhere, which does not disqualify them, but is just something for the committee to be aware.
Clear as mud.
Yes.
Well,
One of the things we always keep saying, the next plan needs to say.
there's that front desk, and I don't get it either. I mean, I'm sitting there, it's got a rack of business cards for the naturalists, and this one, she's a federal employee. She works at the Catlin, she works for State Department of Wildlife and Parks. She works for the city of Wichita. That's executive director. I said, how in the world do you manage this? It gets very complicated.
Yeah, but I was impressed that they could bring all of those entities together
Yeah.
under one roof to make it work. And how many times do we wish
Yes.
They would come together and work like that
Yeah.
on other issues.
If I could also just touch point on something Bethany said earlier about their earned income. Part of that partnership does limit their ability to earn income, especially on
yeah.
admissions, which we see that in several of the applications that because of their different structures, they're not able to charge or their mission is to provide free admission. So their earnings will always be low. Because
I'm just saying, it's because it's just like my stance has always been on foundations, because of how foundations are set up
Right.
in the structure of the matrix for scoring, they're always going to perform poorly. And so same way, anybody that mission is free is always going to perform poorly on our economic questions unless those change. And they could change in the future, but right now with what we're dealing with, they're always gonna. They're not gonna be able to. Anything else on Friends of the Great Plains Nature Center?
I don't know if, they just didn't include it, but I think their board policies need some additional detail. They just said they're committed to DEI. Super. Additional detail would be appreciated.
And that's usually how that question works though, but when they say DEI, people are like, I don't wanna say the wrong thing, so I'm just gonna say we're.
We're committed.
You believe in it.
Check.
Okay. Forum, right? Is that right?
Yes. 68.7.
I think they've got innovative programming, especially in a black box theater environment. I don't know of anybody else other than, but it's geared more for a younger audience. It's doing black box theater other than, Wichita Children's Theater is, but again, it's geared toward a much younger audience, so. Their attendance numbers are at.
One thing I thought they described better well in person at the Q and A was their community engagement and talking about their pre and post show discussions and how that brings people, like keeps them coming back to their performances.
That does stand out as unique too, in terms of something that they offer that a lot of shows don't.
Right, yeah, I've never heard of that
Yeah.
before, so I was interested to learn more about what that looks like and what they see from it.
They're not financially sound. That's my biggest con with them.
Negative unrestricted assets are an issue.
Yeah, I don't know why, but yeah.
They also only listed 2 collaborations. And they numbered them, so it's pretty easy to see that they can get 3.
That was huge, you put the number.
3, 2, 3, 2.
There's something there.
If that's what you got. That's what
Mhm.
Yeah, very true.
I also struggled with their answer on the youth programming. They wrote that they offer discounted tickets and study guides, but that's not, in my opinion, youth programming. Somebody already said that, so, sorry.
Young artists to perform with them, that would have.
Maybe another example of like, you're right at the line, but you don't say it.
Yep.
And all I can go off of is what you tell me.
I think we should commend them from moving from a working board to a governing board. I would have thought that would have happened sooner than it's happening, but I think that's a step in the right direction. Bring some stability to the organization. Other comments regarding the forum?
They don't all need to fill the whole screen.
Yes, well, and the other thing is this, when I hear it go dead, I'm gonna ask to move on, so, okay, moving on.
So the closest to that we have, so this was 68.4,
Okay.
roughly the same score as form.
Anybody want to say anything?
I don't think the Q and A served them well.
No,
No.
There's some that it really helps, i.e. Wichita Jazz, there's other, it doesn't help at all.
this,
Also on the youth programming, when they talked about doing Susanna at WSU, those are graduate students and not youth. So that's not a youth programming.
yeah,
And then they hired a Hispanic dance troupe.
Yeah.
And listed that as youth programming. But also like a grand opera company, I feel like doesn't typically include children, not like, you know, Opera Kansas that is bringing opera to youth specifically. But still, they didn't quite hit the mark on that question.
Well, they consider that 18 to 21-year-old group as youth, so obviously. So that might be that, you know, when you word it, Jesse, you might indicate that, you know, the target for youth programming is under 18 or something like that.
Now, on the counter side, with their programming, which they claim is youth, is actually growing low in our community, in the opera community.
I do think it's cool that they said they re-released video archives on YouTube.
Yeah.
So they could have expanded more on that, how that's making opera more accessible to people. And maybe they're just not promoting that. Maybe that's an opportunity for them.
Parents are on board commitment. Made me feel more like they were trying to convince themselves that they were doing good with their board, as opposed to actually giving us details on what the question was asking.
Well, and honestly, the length of time that some of these
Yeah.
people have been on the board,
Yeah.
oh,
that's kind of scary.
This is how we keep our board members
That's
engaged.
that first line on there. The financial contribution.
Oh,
That's what they say.
of course, yeah.
yeah,
We can have the only one that does that for the financial
Yeah.
contribution.
their board is keeping them alive more with their checkbooks than they
Yeah.
are with their covering.
Yeah.
I do think they are doing some, making some inroads to try and grow their audience. I'm not sure they know who their target audience is, but I think they're trying to grow that. And I look at those ways that they're trying to get opera out there with the Czech opera and Bon Appetit, and the Magic Flute, and just some other things like that. And hence their attendance numbers are going up. I don't know that it's getting them the earned income maybe that they like, but I think they're doing some things right in trying to introduce opera in unique ways to the general public.
Give them credit for finding a way and a size that is sustainable, because we had some real concerns about this group.
Well, they've done a nice job with fundraisers and private donations. I mean, it's not from earned income, it's private donations and fundraisers that are keeping them alive.
Just know this, or did they say in the Q and A, because I don't see it on the application, that they were trying to repair a not so wonderful reputation?
That was addressed this time around, I believe.
Okay,
To common knowledge.
okay.
Anything else about Wichita Grand Opera? Okay, I think that puts us to the largest.
Nope.
No,
One more.
sorry, Regina. See, I just try and skip some people, don't I? I'm just like,
Our final meeting,
woo-hoo.
score of 64.4.
Everybody knows my major complaint.
So they need to review their application prior to submission. And, yeah. I don't think this was a very well-written application. That's my personal thought.
One of my concerns with this group is there's no sign of growth. I mean, her class numbers, attendance numbers, I mean, doesn't show any positive or impact that she's gaining traction.
And you can't determine it from the financial stability because they've submitted all the financials based on both the California and the Kansas productions. So I mean, the application did not do them well. And I question the collaborations, you know, that they've indicated and, you know, stretching classes at, you know, yes, I need stretching classes at my old age home, but you know, I don't know that that's a collaborative. I'm guessing they may or may not get paid for it. You don't know from the application, but I just have a real issue with the board. We have 3 board members. 1 is from Kansas and 2 are from California. And this is an ongoing issue. I've heard for years from her, she's going to expand the Kansas leadership. How long does it take to get a board member?
I'm concerned that the 990 still lists it as a California organization. And also in one of the questions that talked about sustainability, instead of trying to grow and retain audience, the application talked about their choice to go after ARPA funds, which doesn't seem like the most sustainable strategy.
Well, and I thought that was a weird way to react to the time of what was happening. To just go, okay, we'll go after ARPA funds, not worry about it. That'll be our fundraiser.
They also put a lot of emphasis on touring, and I'm all for touring, but these are Wichita dollars.
Well, and I don't like the fact that their attendance numbers, if you're looking at the attendance, I mean, the vast majority of those attendance numbers are in California. So how is that benefiting us?
I did parse their numbers separately to calculate, and even their attendance numbers locally are down 20%. I mean, so.
Was there a plan to move the organization to Kansas?
Every year.
That's been in the works for a long time.
I thought it was forever a California organization who just has an office in Wichita that does work in Andover and Lawrence.
My memory from conversations is now Wichita. They still have retained California. I don't know. But
Well, and apparently most of their funders are in California.
Yeah, that's, I think, one of the
So,
and there's
hang-ups there.
yeah.
She said before that California sustains
Yeah, Wichita.
Wichita. Like I said, there just hasn't been any, to me, there's been no positive change in this group since they first came to the door.
So when they first came, and there was it was a different format than what, or the account was a different format than what we have in the applications since. So if you look at the applications, other than the first year that they received funding, we can't grow a base. She has challenges with growing a base. And she can't get traction. I don't know what else it would be. She can't get traction with board members. I don't know why it would be that difficult to find board members in Wichita, Kansas. But it either tells me you're not trying to, or there's something else there that is not showing in the application.
Well, I think part of that could potentially be that she's the primary person here in Wichita. coming into Wichita and then starting something like this and not having body of people around you to help direct it, it is a little difficult here. For example, I started gaining more success when I did find my circle, so to speak, where there were people that already had a reputation here that were able to go and recruit board members for me. I couldn't find a board until then. So I could see where that could end up being a kind of a leadership challenge. I don't know how that gets addressed in regards to this.
Not to go backwards, but just a gentle reminder that it's a fresh application process every year. So we don't compare applications to past year applications, which is, I think, especially relevant for the committee members that this is your first time reading it, that we look at it as what they presented this year. They do have a Wichita-based company, or the professional dance company is based out of Wichita, but the educational space is based out of California. So they do operate a company here in Wichita. But recognizing the greatness that the committee is picked up on.
I guess you can actually go off the standards.
Just have to get back on the record, just a gentle reminder. Decisions are yours. I'm very happy to not have to make any other decisions.
Any other comments about Regina Colonna?
Read somewhere in here, or perhaps I made it up, that they're the only professional dance company in Wichita.
He says that, but I would argue that.
Yeah,
You would argue that?
I would
Okay.
argue that.
yeah. She says that in the Q and A every year.
Okay.
Yeah. Or
She's
this
got
year,
it
she
here
said.
in her, in her innovation.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Applications.
Okay. The only professional dance company permanently.
Okay. Thank you. I was like, I swore I couldn't find it again, but I thought I read it. Well, it's interesting to me that she says that, but we might question it.
Mhm.
So I think that matters if it's true, but if it's not.
So how would you say, you know, if she would qualify that, although I think she's getting some challenges in that with Ballet Wichita, but what would you call Ballet Wichita? What would you call?
Well, Valley Wichita would be considered a pre-professional dance company because their dancers are not paid to perform.
But her dancers, I get that, but I still don't think, I think that with what Ballet Wichita is getting ready to do, I think where she has her niche, if she would say we are the only contemporary dance company in Wichita, hands down sold. I don't think she can say she is the only professional dance company in Wichita.
That's helpful.
And that's something where, knowing a dancer, it's a lot of like really fine lines within that, because just like you're saying, like pre-professional, professional, that's where like, I can say maybe I doubt it, but I can't say that it's not true at the same time, because there are other dance companies in Wichita. I'm just not sure that there is another professional dance company.
There are no other professional dance companies that staff are aware of that have a true company that have paid dancers
Right? 'Cause the
that
way
exist within their
operates-
company structure.
Yeah, the way that.
Well, then I
operates-
guess she
Yeah.
does. I'd still argue it, but I guess.
And that would be like comparative to like a repertory theater company that has the theater actors are part of that company that then perform the plays, which is similar to what foreign theater is going towards. So that's where we would consider Ballet Wichita is currently pre-professional because their dancers are all in an academy and they bring in their principal dancers from outside.
Till they get,
They are working.
They are
towards
going
building
that
their own
way, yeah.
company, but they
Right.
currently do not have their own company. But it's purely semantics for the case of this conversation.
any other comments?
I will say in the positive, I feel like there was some, I feel like the way that she mentioned diversity throughout the application was admirable. There was certain places throughout the application where it wasn't like we brought in a group of Hispanic dancers, but more like this is what we do on a daily basis, and like you could see hints of it throughout the application. that I think is something I'm always gonna key in on. This is very admirable.
Not only mentioned, but probably implemented. You'll have to tweak the words, but I think, it's one thing to say it, it's one thing to do it.
Right.
Are we clearly going to say, this is how you spell Wichita?
Well, didn't, I think Jesse said, I think,
I don't know. No,
I
mean,
thought
we need to review application
Yeah,
prior to
yeah.
submission.
Hopefully they can pick up on
I
that.
mean, these aren't final, these comments, some folks came in, I think after I said this will be rewritten. This is just sort of shorthand so that Jesse can go back and write a longer document.
well, and at Q&A, I think you asked.
I point blank,
I
yes.
think you asked if the education coordinator was the only one who resided in California, to which they said yes. When I went back to figure out my dollar figures, et cetera, and my points, they have a grant writer on staff, and I wondered, because a grant writer that doesn't live in Wichita would not spell Wichita correctly, but, based on how the Q&A was answered.
Yes, but as I noted, they got it right in the address.
That check to get there. That darn AI, it's just. They say Wichita and said, it's spelled Wichita.
I don't know. I'm just a firm believer that if you're gonna ask somebody for money, you need to respect them enough to spell it correctly.
Yes. And to repeat that mistake all.
Thank. Not just, once, it was opening paragraphs. First sentence.
Okay, any other pros or cons for RKDC? All righty. So I think now we're back to the largest, Jesse. Could you flip over and let us see scores, please? Thanks.
Yeah. That is Activation and Vision, again, are technically large organizations, but they're not being funded, so they're at the bottom of the list. These scores. The blue, it's,
Mark Arts is 83 point.
yeah,
83.6.
Arts Partners, 80.2. Music Theater Wichita, 79.0. Kansas African American Museum, 78.2. Ulrich Museum, 75.5. Orpheum Performing Arts Center, 72.1. Wichita Public Library Foundation, 71.8. PBS Kansas, 71.5. And KMUW, 66.0. Highest scoring application expiration.
As there's this organic pause happening, would anyone like to take a comfort break? While we enter this next session.
We'll take 5. You already lose somebody?
Yes, it's a pause. You're doing great, everyone.
Actually, it's not doing too bad.
This is the hard part.
Yeah, this is.
The dollar for.
And if anyone.
I mean, last year it was pretty, the dollar amount seemed to flow pretty naturally.
Would you like a carrying machine? Would you like?
Which-
Thank you.
Die for it.
Wait, Jesse, would you make sure she heard the,
I'll go get it.
whoever the hell you are? Also would like to get.
Yeah. I don't know what you're talking about. Jimmy, I don't have time to talk to you.
So, yeah, I told it to me, and I should have.
We do have some more traditional breakfast pastries left over from yesterday's arts forum. They're in the break room if anybody would like some. This is actually at 7:58. Are we starting at 8? I'm in the line at the donut place, I'm like, I hope not.
Yeah, I had to double check. We didn't get back in town until like 8:30 last night.
Yeah.
But maybe.
Like I said, we left the place with a, like, we were there 5 days and high temperature was all of 74. Red River, New Mexico.
Yeah, I know quite well.
Our son who's here, he said, "You may want to reach there."
Yeah.
You might want to stay a little longer.
Yeah, seriously.
Yeah.
It was what?
Okay.
I mean, it feels like it's hitting like 110. I mean, my car, I parked in the shade over by the movie theater, and every time I get in there, it's like, it's 113. And I'm like, you're in the shade.
Yeah.
And you don't want to, it's supposed to work. How much difference that makes?
Sorry, didn't mean to throw some down.
Oh, no, I think
We weren't ready.
I think we needed to go. Someone's got to start the way.
Yeah.
And sleeping with the window open
Yeah.
and pulling an extra cover, I mean, they're just, it's so invigorating in a sense, like, our grandson said, well, what's TV? No.
Yeah, let's go out and play. Yeah, enjoy this wonderful weather. But, there's studies that show when the temperatures go up, violence increase, and we've certainly seen it.
Seen it.
And, people just don't have, I kept telling Tom, I think there's something wrong with my car. And it's like, no, you got your car and it said it registered 110 degrees out. The air conditioner just can only kick out so much stuff, right?
So, Ann Howard.
Oh, thank you.
It was one of those getaways that my parents.
And,
A bottle of water.
we've done that with our kids.
Yeah.
And, like, the son's.
I'll take a bottle of water, Lindsay.
Don't eat
I know. Going to the donuts too.
Yeah.
But Gene, I give you credit, you almost.
Yes.
Yes, I know.
Thank you.
I do have a
I almost wore something different. I said, oh no,
I do
I'm
have,
gonna be ready for winter.
I do have a poncho that anybody's welcome to borrow.
What is fun?
My blanket's still in my car. so-
My office sweater is actually an office poncho.
Yeah. I know. I just, do you remember Sam discussion? I don't know if it was last year or the year before, because he was the one that goes.
Remember my sweater this
If
time?
we
It
make
was-
comments
it was.
before, how do- And I said, you just go there. You just like, that's wrong.
And watch, next year I'm gonna forget and show up in force.
Well, it's very easy to remember, like, this is so much stronger than last year, or this is so much weaker
Yeah.
than last year, but then it's like, okay, fresh
It's
eyes. every
impossible,
year.
but you have to try.
Yeah.
That's why I go, still only have 3 board members, still only on campus, and
Well, maybe in the next cultural plan, we'll write every cultural planning member is allowed to remember everything
Yeah.
about the organization.
You get one a year.
Yeah. You get one organization.
He can pass knowledge of.
Yeah.
It is,
I just will.
it is pretty hard, because I look at organizations like
Well,
Make ICT, and I'm like, I know what you all do.
Yeah.
Like, why didn't you write? You know?
Makes me do.
They do.
Help me, help you.
Yeah,
Why are they bothering?
and that's the lens that I have to kind of look at it through, like, I know what you do, but I have to look at this as someone who has no idea who you are.
Yeah.
Right.
What does this application say? Yes.
It's very difficult to sit here and not argue for a lot of these organizations. I hear something and I'm like, actually.
Because it's like, it's a arts and cultural application, and I see a community garden. What are you talking about? Can you just, if you just take that out
And
put it in
replace
the
it
same-
with pottery studio.
Yes.
That's
All of a sudden you have a much better application.
that's, I know that there's always comments about the Q and A, but that's why I think the Q and A is so important, is that these folks, not all of them, but they don't realize, if you want me to score you based on what you put on this paper, it may not be to your best benefit, but
And they weren't catching the hint in the Q and A. I was like,
Yes.
Ask you this question, you're gonna catch the hint, but answer it.
Oh, I remember last year, you had this like slow pitch softball. And somebody just like watches it go right by. Are you serious?
Like, come on.
Yeah.
Well, my wife asked your gardener, I said, well, your group was mentioned in one of the applications 2 or 3 times. She goes, why would they be mentioned in it? I can't really explain it.
It's a very orderly plants his tomato.
Yes.
It's like, you must ask us about anybody. We have conversations all the time about what a cultural organization really is.
Yeah.
How can?
And you're kind of,
We're like,
it's past knowledge, you've been doing this for a while.
I'm Windsor.
It is.
Well, sports in general is cultural.
Yeah.
And like the NBC logo.
They?
Had this forever.
Don't they?
I think
They're
I
city funded?
paid like $10 for it in the Chelsea market, like 20 years ago. It goes with that. Yeah.
Probably it's not.
The go-to.
Probably,
Most sports teams are non.
I would think.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
Okay, Brady, don't tell them that they're cultural and that they can come apply.
We have to draw the lines.
Before we start defining it.
Well, okay. This-
I
Well,
found a
another thing that-
definition for culture.
What's that?
I
I
found
think
a
I should
definition
add a
for culture.
question that says, tell us why you think you're an arts and cultural organization. Have to figure it out, and I was trying people to tell me.
Actually, that's a
point
great
blank.
idea.
Really, as I think especially if we try to provide this more in-depth broader applications, like, don't make me work for it, just tell me point blank, why do you think you fit?
So do you want? Give everyone $1,000.
Yes.
And art.
Yes, I do.
That's what
do.
makes this.
It's where we're funding. I think we're
Like, for some, it's gonna be like that, but for others, I think it's more nuanced.
We're the best investment.
Like make us.
It hasn't come up. It hasn't come up that like,
Yeah.
kind of, this is not
Well,
emergency.
that's you got an application from Storytime Village. You
For
tell me
capital
why
funding
you think you
purposes,
fit.
Operational success.
I mean, and in a lot of ways, make ICT too is a cultural institution.
But that's where-
Because they're building a
Committee
community.
can choose to
Right.
make one organization.
But to be a cultural institution and not mention.
No.
It might not go over well.
No.
But
Yeah.
Or admit it, make them.
Yeah.
That they teach.
All
Okay,
right, are we ready?
let's get back to, unless you guys really want to be here till 5. No, I don't want to be here. Let's get back on it.
I'm voting for that.
That's what we're all pushing for.
Crazy.
We're all pushing for that.
I did not take a full day of PTO, so.
Chop, chop, people. Chop, chop, better cut. All right. I think the next one we have to discuss is exploration place.
Excellent proposal.
Yeah. Easily understood responses to the questions.
Yeah.
They were able to demonstrate a very high economic impact using quantitative measurements. And they used 2 different measurements to do it, you know?
Just makes my little grant reviewer heart sing.
Like the digital first marketing
Mhm.
that they're doing.
And talk about innovation and the way that they're growing. It's remarkable.
Especially in the Q&A.
Yeah.
Strong financial support, strong board. I mean,
Well, I'm impressed that they're creating more of their own programs rather than just.
Absolutely. That was great to hear.
To be applauded.
Absolutely.
again, another group that was well prepared for the Q&A.
Yes. And it brought the right balance of people to speak to that.
They were very, I think their questions were answered like very concisely. Like, it's like, this is the exact answer to that question. Like, when you talk about target audience, this is what I mean by target audience. You're able to identify the person that you're hoping to come in. It's not saying that other people are excluded, but this is who I'm gearing this toward, and other people that like it, will just gravitate toward.
And just you might elaborate on the cons where that maybe they thoroughly review, I hate to say thoroughly review their application, but review their application and make sure that they've answered all the questions. For instance, no position titles were listed in the fact document. And when we asked them for innovative and creative program, they only gave us one of the past 2 years instead of 2 years. But just trying to balance a little bit
Yep.
out, that you don't walk
That's
on
true,
water,
yeah.
but you're pretty good. But yeah, but you're darn close.
They are the highest scoring
There, just they're not show up on how it's formatted. The positions are all the way in the bottom of that list, I thought. It's just a matter of how it came out.
Maybe it was an Excel document that was exported badly.
Yeah, that's what it looks like. That's the note I made, so
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So they were there.
they were there. I was looking for reasons to not, to balance my score some earlier, and
So Valley Wichita is the model for mediums and maybe exploration for larges on how to write an application. Okay, next one, the symphony.
The fact that they're taking the symphony to the public.
yes.
I agree, Jerry, they're really trying to broaden their,
They totally understand that their demographic needs to change if they're going to survive.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
they're doing, in my opinion, they're doing a nice job of addressing.
Yeah, they're one of the few organizations which truly wouldn't say learn from the pandemic, but change their processes and behaviors due to the pandemic.
Well, they're doing forward thinking.
Mhm.
You know, the traditional symphony audience is gonna have to change. They're going to be around much longer.
I think to that point too, their youth programming is to be commended. And what they describe, they do a lot with youth.
I like that they really use their data, not only to look at program enhancements or performance, but also for the operations of the organization. I mean, they're running like a business. They're really,
Well, I like the fact too that they're staying aware of what's going on with symphonies around the country and giving feedback, not trying to just make it on the air. I'm stuttering here, but make it, where it's just them and it's an island. I mean, getting good feedback from what works in other places, what doesn't.
I think they also demonstrated continued efforts to improve their board rotation, development, and diversification. And then again, I got to point out their economic impact using, quantitative measurements to,
In the outside consulting
Yeah.
firm. To help them be better.
it's just a well-written application.
They do quite a bit with a small staff. I mean, they're 4 full-time employees and everyone else is part-time.
Yeah, but what don't we like about them?
You're in trouble when you're preparing and you either have no questions because they're so bad or no questions because it's so good and you're like, so what am I gonna say during the Q&A? But anyway, yeah.
I think the one negative, that bank balance one is a very, very good point that Martha brought up. That is frightening. When you mentioned that, I knew that, but it's like, that's terrifying for them.
It is.
Yeah.
And PBS.
Mhm.
Not that we're talking about them, no. I didn't say that during the Q&A. It's great to have reserves and it's wonderful to have a plan for reserves, but I didn't hear a plan to spend $1 million in the short term, which would be the only reason, in my opinion, that it should be sitting in money market. And I hope it's sitting in money market.
So should I contact him and say you'd love to sit on the board?
One of my employees on the board.
Any other comments, pro or con about that? Yeah. If not, Mark Arts.
83.6.
Strong support for local artists. Strong attendance and revenue data.
I also think they have done significant growth in their outreach programming.
Yeah.
Running steam in their youth programming.
They're financially stable.
I thought they were well represented in their Q and A.
I will, one, about the community engagement, in a couple of their answers, the one thing that bothered me a little bit was like, they have these like good attendance numbers but it was all about what they're doing to like bring people in. They don't, based on what they described, they don't have any metrics or measures where people are providing input to Mark Arts. You know what I mean? It's a one-way street. Does that make sense? Like, I didn't see anything about surveys or interviews, like how they could better engage the community. It's like, this is what we do and you can participate or not. That just feels like an area to me where they could improve in terms of soliciting community input about what needs are and how they could better serve the arts community.
Or tell us about it if they do it.
Or that, maybe they do.
They were well represented and well prepared for the Q and A.
Okay.
Any other comments regarding Mark Arts?
Their marketing plan was just one sentence.
Elaborate on their marketing plan.
Yeah. A little bit more detail there was been helpful.
It's just a list of stuff.
Yeah, if we ask the question, we probably want more than one sentence answer.
How do you do marketing? Advertise.
Social media.
You want something more than that? No.
Yeah. That is unfortunately more than we get from some people though. A little more specific, so.
Yeah.
Anything else? If not, arts partners.
80.2.
Well, you know, I think they should be commended. They introduce arts and culture to a large number of youth every year.
And it's expanding.
It's very clear she has big dreams and goals for what the organization could be, which I think is commendable.
And they do, and she's doing great in pulling down grant funding. But one comment that she had in her statement is that they expended 39% of the funds committed by schools. So if the schools have, say, $100, I'm going to use easy math, $100 to spend, why is she only getting $39 of it? To me, that would be, I would think low hanging fruit, but maybe it's not.
I didn't understand her response to that.
I know, I did ask the question and I didn't either. She may not have understood my question.
Well, what she branched off into other funding areas from other districts. So either she maxed out what she can get from USD 259. Or I don't know.
Well, it makes me question, if 259's already got it set aside, why are they, why is 259 not either pushing it that way, or why is she not either getting with the principals to let them know that they have these resources? I don't know. But I'm curious, I'm still curious as why she's only getting 39% of those budgeted dollars. But still, they're doing great. It's a great program.
Great program.
I do think she's understated her economic impact.
The STEAM summer camps are really critical to our community.
Mhm.
I like how Trina's is already listed, but her collaborations too. With other programs and institutions, working with Wichita Art Museum, working with the Native American Indian Education Program, Kansas Aviation Museum. I think it's awesome that she's collaborating with those folks to expand reach and bring that to the kids too.
Any other comments regarding arts partners? I told you if I hear quiet, I'm gonna keep pushing, yeah. All right, music theater.
79.0.
Am I allowed to stay in the room for this part?
Oh, yeah.
Well, I stayed in the room
Yeah.
for,
Did you?
for Harvester Arts.
And just be quiet.
I just was quiet. I said nothing.
If you would like to step outside, you're more than welcome to. Their seats in there.
I gave stink eye.
My
but I-
apologies.
Their approach to try and, I don't know, grow their audience, to really understand who their audience is and how that audience is changing and how to engage. So I think that's a very, long-term strategy to help grow and maintain and grow.
I mean, I thought overall it was a strong proposal and I thought their Q&A session was good as well. They were prepared and it was effective.
Their attendance figures were up. That's a good thing, especially since they had some challenges with.
I think they've been very creative in trying to deal with those disruptions and challenges.
Yeah.
And that they really have a thoughtful plan to rebuild audience.
I like the way you worded that.
Yeah, and they were during the pandemic, one of the few that kept trying to get out there and do something. Which was important. And scary for them, I know.
But as a season ticket holder, I'm sure I'm thrilled that they're gonna be back indoors.
Yes.
They are too. They are too, yeah.
I
Can't
appreciate
wait.
on the use of city funds, they were both specific in how they would use it, but they also illustrated like it's covering only 10% of the salaries, right? I thought that was compelling. Mhm.
Growing season ticket sales. I thought they had a good plan for that.
Well, and the fact that they look at the overall impact on the community and like the Hamilton issue. You know, they took the high road and moved their performance in order to let Hamilton at that time.
That's very collaborative.
It's very
I
collaborative.
don't think people, I'm gonna go back to the Friends. I don't think people really understand true collaborations. That's really collaborative. They could have
Yeah,
been a real pain in the rear.
Yeah,
absolutely.
they could have.
Until they did their application, I hadn't thought through potential for the negative impact on them.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And then it became very apparent.
Anything else? Moving on. T-camp, right? Did I read that right? No.
You did.
Yeah, T-camp, yes.
78.2.
I think we have to give them kudos. It's regarding the great job they've done in the capital campaign for the new location. I mean, it kind of permeates all their, or taints all of their economic stuff, but they've done a great job in raising that money.
I thought they had a very clear operational use for the grant funds. And I appreciate the way they use their pillars to guide their performance benchmarks.
So this is kind of one of those two-edged things as well. They didn't really define their target audience, but they did do a really good job of explaining how we want to expand their reach into the community.
I think that's one of those things, I won't say everything, reading this. And knowing, like, this is the Kansas African American Museum, I really feel like a lot of times they get a little apprehensive about being direct about their target audience. And I think a lot of diversity-led organizations have that issue where it's like, no, like for real, my target audience is African American people. I don't want to say that because I don't want to make anyone uncomfortable. And that's kind of what I read that as. Is I feel like anytime I see all Kansans, all Wichita, it really like it slows me down a bit because it's like, no, that's not your target. That's not your target at all.
I did think they had a good Q&A.
Yeah. The decrease in their paid membership, they did talk about a different kind of support program, didn't they?
Yeah.
And we did,
Right.
right, and how that's different from membership.
It's like,
Different kind of support. But just in general, different kind of support.
Yeah, it was just a different level of support from a membership.
Yeah, I remember Gracie
They moved it to sustaining donors, I believe. If I can read my handwriting.
I think it was something like that. Oh, that sounds about right.
Yeah, I can make a donor out.
She said it was still there and they didn't ship it to us.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I will momentarily. We pause for.
No one say anything profound for.
Are you live?
We are back.
Okay.
Profound statements.
Anything else about T?
I think they've done a really good job at kind of switching gears in their programming, but it does also bring me a bit of concern. And I don't think I got a chance to really ask this, but does doing more outside of the museum negatively affect attendance at the museum?
I can see that coming. The division is excited to see them this weekend at the Windsurge Monrovians thing.
Yeah, it's a very interesting, that whole thing. Once I learned about that,
Yeah.
a couple years ago, I was like, wow, but it is a thing though, like I think what they've done in the community at large is amazing and it brings the education to people that might not otherwise be there. But it does still concern me about the establishment itself. Like, does that then change the way this establishment operates?
Good point. Does it draw people in or does it change it?
Right.
Anything else? If not, moving along.
Just really quick, I found my note. It's called the Giving Society.
Giving Society. Thank you. The Aldrich Museum, 75.5.
I think we ought to recognize recognize the efforts of them getting their collection available for online. I think that's huge.
Well, I think related to that, I liked how they have a program for teachers on the website that allow them to teach them. They teach the teachers how to teach about the works, the artwork, which is like, I just think that's tremendous.
And their efforts to consider accessibility for people with physical limitations.
And some of their ethnic oriented art collections, I think, are to be commended as well. And they did galas, or I don't call it galas, but they're opening receptions and stuff for those, I think are nice to see.
So this is a plus and a minus, and because they're free to everybody, if they can't really demonstrate, or they can only demonstrate limited economic impact. However, due to their free program, they reach a broad base of constituents. So, it's like, there's pros and cons to that.
To Jerry's point about the aims at diversity, this time around, they were speaking of Native American Vietnamese populations as a whole, which sometimes get bypassed as we look for diversity.
Well, and to add on to that, it was not just with their audience, the programs and exhibitions, but also their board, their docents, and their leadership.
Yes, it would be appropriate to say we're concerned about them finding a suitable replacement for your former position.
That's Janet.
Yeah, Jesse didn't work there.
Oh, you didn't work at the Oak?
No, I worked,
Another staff member,
Okay, I'm sorry.
our public art.
I worked in the music department, slightly.
Not the same.
But you could acknowledge they have had significant staff turnover. They had a new director within the last year as well. That could be acknowledged.
Because of how they're structured, it's difficult to determine reserves, for them as a subrecipient of the larger organization. And so it's the same that we have with others, but for consistency, I think we need to bring that up.
Can we also, for consistency, bring up, we need to review our application, make sure the whole table is filled out.
Yeah, I'm looking at, attendance. And it's like,
I was looking at their board of trustees, like half of it's not included.
in attendance overall, I'm also a bit concerned about the consistent decline in attendance. Especially paying for should
Anything else regarding the audit? If not, how about we move on to the Orpheum?
Performing Arts Center, 72.1.
They had a significant increase in attendance and earned income, so kudos to them.
I thought their Broadway happy hour was really innovative.
Like, just return on investment there must be so high because you're just showing your place.
Along those lines, and it's the chicken and the egg with them, but their applications spoke more to their renovations than their programming under innovation. And so, I get it, but
I think that goes along the line with their innovative programming as well. It spoke more to kind of what they wanted to do as opposed to like, what have you done over the last 2 years, like specifically? Have you done, not what changes are you wanting to implement?
I also think they tried to use some quantitative numbers in their economic impact over the next 50 years. So I figured that your operating budget or what have you. I think they could have, I think there's some tools out there that they could have used that could have made a much better argument for their economic impact.
If someone can help remind me, but when we asked the question in the Q&A about the pros and cons of their ASM partnership, did ASM, is that helping them with their capital campaign, or it's just helping them like put shows on stage? I couldn't remember.
It's the recruiting of the shows.
Yeah. That was like the pro. She said like the con, it sometimes it makes the capital growth challenging, just explaining how that partnership works, just an
Gotcha.
extra step.
The way I wrote my note, I wasn't.
I think the lack of progress in their capital campaign is a major concern. I mean, when they're talking about concerns about how not good. I mean, the attendance numbers, positive, I love all that, but got to the first three benchmarks that they need to get.
You're gonna have to word that very carefully since we don't fund capital, but I do think that much like McCormick, the capital renovations are gonna impact the program.
Right.
And so,
Yeah, and that's why I'm voicing it as a concern.
yeah,
Comparable comments you've talked about, just overall stability of the organization. That could be consideration.
Well, I think actually in the Q&A, Rachel really alluded to the fact that the facility issues are becoming a barrier.
mhm.
And I think we can point to that.
Yeah, because you referenced somebody who said, no, we won't come and play.
Right.
As far as pros, I'd also like to say their ability to connect and collaborate with other organizations, really giving other organizations a space to come in and connect to the overall community at large.
Well, let's be clear, they're not giving them.
Yeah.
We make that capital campaign, my wife and I went to a concert after we had this Q&A and I pointed out it was built in 1970s.
Anything else about the RFM? If not, who are we going to now? The library, the foundation.
Wichita Public Library Foundation, 71.8. Got two more of these folks. Three of them, three more.
Doing great.
Keep it up.
Okay, coach.
Fire you guys up.
So this is one where I have challenges because their mission speaks to raising funds on arts and culture. And since they don't themselves provide the programming, it's very difficult for me to figure out how to.
This is also another one of the ones where, again,
Good job.
this is an arts and culture grant, to not mention arts and culture it makes it challenging.
But, I mean, that's one where I kind of not necessarily struggle, but I would assume that libraries as a whole is a cultural institution, that it's implied, even though they are a funding source for that. I don't have nearly as much anxiety about them leaving that out, considering they are a funding arm of an organization. But, you know, support young readers, accessible, equitable access to information. The one I'm with Beth, I always have trouble with these. Argue for the importance of libraries and access to arts and literature for anyone, particularly in underserved populations. I mean, I remember very distinctly as a kid going to Evergreen Library and checking out books. So I commend their mission. I do think this is a good application which describes their service and what they do to support the library system without taking credit solely for library activities. What do they call that? The portable library. What's it called?
Mobile.
The mobile libraries. Yeah, with Hutton is a nice partnership.
Oh, the little libraries?
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that.
If I'm reading it correctly, that's one of their initiatives and not a library, but I could be entirely wrong with my understanding of that.
I think they could strengthen their application by, I'm looking at my note, I think they could strengthen their application by really focusing on how they help secure the necessary dollars needed to, I don't want to say improve, enhance, grow, to maybe grow programming at the library. And which could then tie better with maybe some of the ways they answer their other questions related to them. Why it's important, you know, for them to do some of the things they do. But yeah, this one's a tough one for me because I believe in what the ultimate objective is. It's just, man, they should have a hard time fitting our matrix.
Believe in the cultural plan, the Library Foundation is specifically mentioned as
They are.
being allowed to apply.
And so you're absolutely right, which is why I think we have some of the issues with the other foundations, because, you know, it's like, well, if this foundation's in, then you've got to let the other foundations in. And I think it just murks up the water.
I think differently after the first year,
Mhm.
looking at their application because of that carve out for this.
There's a list, it's like these people would be able to apply. Yeah, that's different.
Yeah, it's down
It's
in it's in the revised one, was a 13 or whatever.
In their innovation statement, they actually say something about the library does not receive any cultural arts distribution from the city. So, WPLF commits time and energy to understanding library priorities, then works to bridge the financial gap between these priorities and the library's annual budget.
The challenge is to remember that this is operational support, it's not programming support.
Right.
So the public library is supported with operational support from the city, not program support.
Okay.
Any other comments about, you get quiet again, so you know I'm asking my question. Any other comments pro or con about the Library Foundation?
I mean, there are a lot of financial pros I think we could toss in there, probably from your notes. I assume they're financially stable.
The foundation is financially
Yes.
stable, but they don't have earned income, so to speak, you know, so it's like, yeah, I mean, it's really, our matrix is hard to apply to foundations.
I will offer that this organization did reach out to us and we spent considerable time talking them through how to create a successful application, given their nuance within the program.
Yeah.
So they did reach out for like,
Yeah.
how can we succeed in this program?
Well,
So they
and
spent a
under
lot
the
of time
use for how they're gonna use the funds, but 30,000 in cultural arts operating funds requested will pay for a portion of their fundraising expenses, which will reduce their overall operating expense so that the organization can increase the amount of funding.
And that was at staff's recommendation to
Sure.
make sure it's very
Yeah,
clear
yeah.
that you're using the operational funding for the foundation.
Right.
So that the money they raise can go to programs at the library. Yeah, it's like.
Right.
And on that note, they increase grant funding year to year, it looks like. Foundation support also increased year to year. I take Jesse's cue and add to that number.
Mhm.
I think, and just, they talk about the focus of the foundation in terms of developing a new website and working on the 2 million capital campaign for the purchase of a bookmobile, which I think is what the first thing is about, the bookmobile. The Little Library Partnership is a separate
Right.
initiative. And then supporting updates in family engagement technology and building renovation. So like, I just think what they describe in terms of priorities feel really right in terms of the current context of our community and
Mhm.
what they're hoping to change to do better in the future. It's good stuff. Does that make any sense?
Anything else about the Library Foundation? Going, gone. PBS Kansas.
71.5.
Well, their children's area is impressive.
I'll say this is one of the organizations. I don't know how to place this, but during the Q&A, at certain points, it turned more into marketing than answering questions. And that's time that could be used to answer more questions, to really strengthen our opportunity.
See, I'm a little bit on that line. I feel very strongly in their application that their goal is more about education than it is about arts and culture. And arts and culture is one part of their education, but it's not the focal point of their education. Other thing is, and I didn't get an opportunity to ask this question, what part of the programming is arts and culture as opposed to their other programming that they do? And is it done locally? You know, am I going out, am I creating it locally? What percent is created locally versus purchased and redistributed? Does that make sense? I'm probably not using the right terms. Help me out, person that deals with that on a day-to-day basis.
These are keys from
Ah,
this conversation.
Because we have a partnership with them.
So, you know, I don't know what the technical term is, but if I'm just purchasing it and then rebroadcasting it as opposed to creating it. And I don't have an answer for that.
And it's interesting because we did see their names in a couple of other applications.
Yeah.
So we know that they're doing collaborations within the community. And I think a couple of them were alluded to, but I still feel like there was some missed opportunity there in describing that crossover with art in specific.
Yeah, so PBS and KUW both I struggle with because to me, it feels a little bit like the foundation situation where you are not creating it, but you are making it more available. They say that they're the largest arts and cultural platform for Central Kansas and the region. So it's like, you're not making the art, but you're making it available to people. So are those both elements that we focus on?
Yeah.
Because like the Orpheum also doesn't necessarily produce art. They are a stage where arts are performed. To me, that's a similar situation, but then they're also like a literal physical institution in the middle of downtown Wichita. So maybe that's a little bit different, but.
And it's historical, and that's culture.
Yeah.
It also started alluding to some programming that takes place within the building itself that's open to families that provides art. She started giving a bit more information about it during the Q&A, but that's also where her marketing had shifted on as she started doing invitations as opposed to explaining to us what the art was within that. And actually could have spent a little bit more time talking in specific about some of those things and like the art that was happening there as opposed to just saying vendors. Like what vendors? What are they doing?
Again, this one is one of those organizations that gets penalized because they don't have earned income. So they get penalized in points because they don't have earned income and how that goes.
Well, you all know I really struggle with these last two, and I still do. I think that one of the things that would have helped me was if they had chosen to focus more on the art and culture component of their local programming
Yes.
and not let the air that comes to them packaged from PBS. And I mean, to me, that component, that still feels like a program within our larger organization.
Thing of one, I think it was like one particular moment where PBS Kids used to particularly say, like on one of their commercials, this is what we do, arts and cultures, and this is the percentage, and these are the dollars that we bring in. Like, I seem to remember that. I just feel like that's a missed opportunity here because it's one of those things where you know it, but it's not here. It's not here. And again, it's been alluded to, but there's been no specific acknowledgement of this is the art that we're doing and this is the impact that it's making.
Yeah, I kind of go off of Anthony and you as well in that. Yeah, this one's just really hard for me. I think they do education. I think they do a lot of rebroadcasting, expanding maybe to an audience, but I'm really having trouble with, are they creating the art and culture?
Did I interpret it correctly that in their target audience description in the application, the youngest age listed was 18?
I don't know.
That'd be weird since they have the play area.
I did see that comment. It is, yeah. on the comments,
Weird.
but-
And then I could just nitpick and you need to know who your funders are, and Ameritrust is not a bank. It's a credit union, and there's a big difference.
Yeah.
I was disappointed that the executive director wasn't there.
Yes.
I mean, I think we saw the executive director, with the exception of Ballet Wichita, who.
And music theater, and
They
both
did
of
not-
them said why they were not there. Because music theater is doing technical.
Angela
We
is
also-
the co-executive
Well,
director.
true.
Yeah. I don't think we didn't get Opera Kansas either.
Because he was out of the country.
Yeah, but again,
Good point,
Yeah.
yeah, but they explained it.
Right.
Here it was just, I'm the development director and here I am to raise money.
that's what it felt like. Yeah.
And in all fairness, I have to say that their cash balances are ridiculously high, and that's not good board governance, in my opinion.
See under community impact, where they talked about their, under target audience, they do mention 18 to 49. It's not that they don't, yeah, in that they don't include their younger audience, which is what is alluded to in the rest of the application of their, it's kind of who they do programming for, so.
I actually would question if that's their target audience or that's their viewership.
Right.
It's,
Right.
yeah. I mean,
Who's purchasing cable TV? I mean, I know they're not on cable TV, but.
They also didn't really say what they would use the dollars for, which always kind of bugs me. Like, tell me how you're gonna use the money. They say that they included in next year's budget 2 new hires and that these dollars would be highly beneficial in that process.
And are the hires involved in art and culture, or are they
Yeah,
producers?
a senior producer and a production associate. But what if you don't make those hires? Then what? I mean, doesn't give me another reason to fund you. I don't know exactly how you're gonna use it.
So maybe word along that there could be more clarity.
Yeah,
In the application, on how it fits our criteria.
Any more pros that we could add?
I'm looking for it right now.
That's what I'm doing, I'm trying.
well, I,
They're very good.
And they stayed open through the pandemic and kept things going.
mhm.
Oh, yeah, that was a big thing. Not only stayed open, but they, their innovative programming during the pandemic, the way they rethought how to connect, and then not only they themselves connect, but help others connect during the pandemic was, I think, very good.
So maybe you commend them for their collaboration with others during the pandemic to not all of it was arts and culture programming, though, it's like,
That's been
Yeah.
my only hangup, like, they've done a
Yeah.
lot, it's just not all arts and culture.
Cross sector.
The capital campaign.
Sorry, Martha, cut you off.
The capital campaign.
Successful capital campaign.
Yeah, was positive.
I think they have had some good partnerships with local arts organizations. You know, they broadcast the singing Quakers and they've done. Yeah, some of those.
I thought it was curious that they don't plan to continue those partnerships.
Indeed.
But they
pandemic's
want-
over.
But it was really successful.
Yes,
From a
coming from,
outside
coming from the other side, the other partners may not want to do it because it's taking income away from them. If they're performing live, they're getting income. If they're being shown on KBTS, what are they getting out of it?
It would be interesting for like WGO to perhaps take those YouTube recordings and send them PBS's way and say, hey, do you want to interview?
Yeah, if they're just gonna put them on YouTube, then that would be a good collaboration.
Right. Yeah, if they're out there in the public realm, absolutely.
I think what they have the potential to provide, and again, just going off the application, what they have. The arts community is great. I just don't see it all the way.
I like it when organizations measure their volunteer hours. They've started doing that within the building.
I like it when their benchmarks are anything in addition to attendance. Some people just rely on that.
Anything else regarding Canada? Oh, PBS.
PBS.
Skip it again.
Well, I was pulling up the next one, so. Said keep it moving, I'm trying. I think it is. KMUW.
66.0.
These two, the bottom two on the large, because I struggled with both of them. And make it fit.
And it's kind of the same thing with PBS. Their mission is not about the production or presentation of arts and culture. It's about creating a more informed and curious public. And so I really struggle with how they fit. And they have some other challenges just because they go through the endowment that doesn't do them any positives as in regard to earned income or, reserve amounts and that because you can't tell how much is them versus the overall endowment. They really don't have a formalized youth program. I don't know. I struggle with this one just like PBS.
This one, I kind of looked at this one a little bit different from PBS because they are saying within the application, they're not necessarily saying we're creating painting. But they are saying that we're providing information in regards to the painting and the artist. And that's kind of the thing that kind of had me score them higher than I scored PBS Kansas. It's like, I don't know, maybe they needed to say it more directly that they are influencing the culture of art with what they do. But I feel like that is kind of implicit in the application where they're like, again, no, I'm not creating the art, but I am informing and driving people to it. Now, how that fits into their primary directive for their organization, I'm not sure.
They did mention, something they have coming up, in the future is an event or exhibit at the library that highlights the Library of Congress project to preserve the history of Kansas through public broadcasting led by KMUW. And I think that's a more direct tie to what makes them fit into the culture aspect.
Yes.
They also,
Go ahead.
okay, I was gonna add, they do add specifically that one of the measures they're tracking is coverage of the arts.
Yes.
Yeah, well, I was gonna point out that, you know, most arts organizations in town rely heavily on KMUW.
Yes.
But, also, you know, they have the MUG program that's been going on for a long time, and that's a really,
Do they pay the artists for that?
yes, they do. The artist gets paid and, it's a good way for the artists to get known, to have their work known in the community.
I will say their presentation in person, I struggled with, because I felt like there were several times we asked questions, she was like, well, I don't get to review it before it gets turned in, and to me, that is not
Yeah.
an acceptable answer.
So I think maybe we suggest that they have someone present that is knowledgeable of the grant application that can answer questions related to it.
Good, that's much better.
They review it.
Don't know. That was not
Yeah.
adequate answer.
Ulrich got to review theirs, right?
Yeah.
Or maybe it's a,
Or we have the board too,
Right,
according to their application.
And they can, and I think I kind of sort of understand why they can't, but then why aren't you using your advisory board
Agree.
to
Agree.
give you the capacity? So I think, you know,
as they explore that.
yeah. Yeah.
A positive is their consistent use of interns. So they have 4 on a regular basis.
I do think, you know, again, there's one that, you know, they really haven't identified their target population, but I do think that they did a good job of addressing how they're reaching out to Spanish speaking and communities of color. So I do think that that's a.
Lindsay, did you get any indication if PBS and KBW both decided to apply this year, if there was any outlets?
That was us.
That would probably be my fault. I would say our fault, but we had a tour of PBS Kansas as part of our monthly arts forum, and their mission statement was printed very large in vinyl on the wall. And I was like, wow, that mission statement is very compatible
Yes.
with this funding program. So our job is to make sure all eligible applicants know they exist within a gray area, and KMUW was at that same meeting. So I would guesstimate that that's why they're aware of the
Well,
program. I'm sorry,
I
and
felt like there had to be some common thing for both of them to apply
Yeah.
for the first time.
Yeah.
I think it's a very important, oh, sorry.
I was just saying, we've done a lot of outreach and we're trying to increase the number of applicants that we get.
Well, and in fact, we asked you to.
Yeah.
Right, yeah.
And I think it's a very important discussion because like, there's the organizations within themselves, right? There's the mark arts and the museums and all of these spaces. But then there are also organizations that directly impact the art and the culture of art. And they might not be mark arts specifically, but mark arts leans heavily on them. And I don't know, I think that's a very important discussion for us to have, especially as the cultural plan advances.
Exactly.
Because without them, that is a very negative impact. Like if both of these organizations were to decide tomorrow, we're not gonna do art in the coming year, then all the arts organizations immediately so.
And I think, Anthony, that's really, I feel like we're really strapped with the cultural plan that we have and how these fit today. I would hope that as it moves forward, or more, the wording is such, I'm looking to you two, and I'll carry that along to the best of my ability. Trust me, I do. I keep going, we don't want, we need some clarification, please. We haven't gotten to that level of minutia yet, trust me, but I think that's the problem we're in right now, is we're trying desperately, I hate to say, put the square peg in the round hole, but that's what I feel like I'm trying to do. I'm trying to make the square peg fit the round hole instead of saying, yes, we recognize that you fit a need in this community and here's how it is. Because I also think if we continue to allow foundations, we need to be fair and give them a different matrix to apply to than what we give organizations to apply to. So I just feel like we have to be fair and equitable in how we do stuff.
Yeah, true.
One maybe point of conversation, I never try to influence what the committee's thinking, but when you're thinking about the media outlets in particular that have applied for the first time this year, I'm also thinking about the Library Foundation as if, and even exploration places, that access to information is part of their mission statement, that we really think about that as a broad scope of mission, and how that fits in each individual organization's capacity towards advancing the arts and culture sector.
So that's much better than I've been trying to say that.
So just I hear what you're saying, but to use an example that's a little bit more concrete that we've had discussion about, is I have one thing that's very clearly arts, but it doesn't fit the mission of the organization as a whole, but they've done this. So is that really what they're all about? Or is that a program of the organization? And I think that's something we have to kind of grips with, because I think we've got some great programs that are one-offs from what the overall objective or mission of an organization is. Doesn't mean that that program isn't worth supporting. This just may or may not be the avenue for that to get funding. And I can give you a couple of examples that, do some great work, but it's a program of the organization as opposed to the reason why the organization exists.
And I would argue, as opposed to some of those like ones that we disqualified from a programming basis recently with these media organizations, the Library Foundation, is that their mission we'll use KMUW, that what they're doing from a news and content creation is a reflection of our society and as of the culture here in Wichita. They are a little more niche than, say, my organization, which is covering more broad things. They're able to focus on literature with their book club, their Wichita, as far as access to civil discourse in our community, strong focus on the arts. And one of the things we've talked about, some of the other organizations we have here would have programs that directly impact artist pocketbooks. I'm glad to hear that those mugs and the t-shirts are funding artists and actually giving them a huge audience beyond what they normally would have. I don't think Rebecca Hoyer needs a bigger audience, of her artwork. People know who she is, but it's nice that, they're getting paid for that work. So we agree to disagree.
I just think there needs to be clarification.
No, there definitely does. Like I struggle with the foundation. all the time.
And, you know, one of does the mission statement fit? So my cut would be, if the mission statement doesn't fit, why are you even looking at the rest of the application? I mean, that's one of the challenges this time, because I'm wearing this other hat over here. Does that even fit? Is that where we need to go? I don't know.
I think that's why I struggle with it, because arts and culture are in their mission statement.
Yeah.
But I also agree that to a certain extent, they're here to inform. One of the things they inform us about are arts and culture, or two of the things.
Any other comments as it relates to KMUW? Notice I'm watching the
Yeah.
clock. You all have told me. I'm watching the clock. Anything else as it relates to KMUW? Because we kind of deviated into the holes
Yeah.
of the application or the process. All right. And Jesse, you want to throw up these average dollar amounts and we'll go from there?
Yeah.
Well, hopefully, with the averages, we came in pretty good.
Yeah, moment. One thing that I did to try to help with that, and I'll hide these columns if they just become confusing, is to, yeah, I know, there's a lot that I've just unhid on the Excel sheet, and rather than have everybody watch me struggle to rehide, I'm not show. Not show those moments of.
Well, I'd like to take this moment to thank you as the committee. As we look behind the scenes on a lot of different stuff, these are really challenging decisions that are being made. So the community appreciates it, city council appreciates it, their office appreciates the work that you're doing and the difficult decisions you are about to make in.
Well, if they just give us more money,
Yeah.
it would be a whole lot easier.
Come on.
More money, more problems.
Yeah.
Nope.
But we'll take it. if that's an option.
All right. I can't fit everybody on the same screen at once, unless it gets really small, so. Try,
That should do the same thing before.
smalls and mediums and larges,
Yeah.
so.
So Jesse, on the average, how did we come out? Did we go to the?
So on average, we were
Okay.
about 9,000 over.
Oh, that's not too bad.
That's not too
That's not bad at all.
That's
Yeah.
One thing that I did was I just mathematically adjusted everything equally down to get us at exactly where we need to be.
Mhm.
This should say 422, because we've already removed the 10,000. And then one other thing that I did, just to see, because that's a heck of a number, because I had everything rounded to the nearest 500. Just for ease, and that left us with about $700 left that we could throw at an organization. But for now, it's our
We're using the adjusted numbers, is that right?
you can use whatever number you want. I'm just
The
showing you
awarded is
numbers.
the average,
What's
correct?
that?
The awarded is the average.
The awarded number is the average that you all did.
Jesse, would you just go ahead and hide column C? I mean, I think you color coded it, so we know.
That's
Yeah,
fine.
type C and D, that might give us what we need.
Well,
That's their
Oh,
score.
well, we probably need D.
School.
Yeah.
if I hide these for now, so you can see. So
Just
for,
in my mind, you could hide the request.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or I'd like to see what they actually requested in comparison. Yeah, that's good.
all right.
Good, good, good. Super.
So requested might be what they actually qualified for. And basically, if you remember your Excel sheet, I made one number, more visible than the other. That's what this number is.
Super.
Large is real quick.
Of course. There's the mediums. Then,
We went really fast in this meetings, but
I thought we were going to the
I
large.
just want to
I was
see
just
what
glancing at the
the
meetings.
average for exploration place and symphony were.
Scroll past the mediums. Here. All of our larges.
They don't look bad. They don't look bad.
And you have expiration place in the medium shown real quick?
Yeah.
Of course. All right.
Scroll all day.
I know, easy. Those two right there.
About 2/3.
For the top two there, is that right? We want to make sure they're somewhat equitable between Valley, Wichita, and expiration place.
Well,
And I can reshow my percentage column if you want.
the challenge becomes on that.
Yeah.
Down there is, their operating budget.
I know.
So-
Yeah.
But we have this conversation every year. We need to see,
Right.
if the scores are close, should they be representative?
Closer,
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm with you.
So if you don't do that, you look at the first two of the small.
Mhm.
I mean, there is a huge gap in score.
Yeah.
There is.
That's 60,
Well, I think
67.
Kansas didn't ask for much in Harvester app or
I mean, if you want to,
$27,000.
I'm happy to sort this data any way that you'd like.
Would it help, Donna, if we?
Yeah,
split
by
it by
score.
score?
Yeah, I'd like to see that.
Just an overall score.
Yeah.
It's gonna make it easy to be a problem here. What
I know, I'm so used to calling them TCAM, but I want to start with K instead of T.
That's our first group.
Kind of orange use is small, right?
Green is small,
Green is small, okay.
orange is medium. It is not as vivid on the projector as it is on my screen. It's much.
No, that's fine.
Actually, think it looks good.
Those larges, very bad.
But this validates our comments earlier that Valley Wichita should be a model for medium.
Yeah, I guess.
Then when you look at the large gap between the numbers, when you look at the percentage requested, I think we're pretty close in regards to the score.
What really sticks out, I think, is part of the program.
Yeah.
It's hard when you get to arts departments and you're like, I want to give them all.
All of it, all of the money.
Give it to arts departments. Yeah. Of course. Unfortunately, I can't fit everybody.
I just want to see what the lowest score is.
Our lowest scores make ICT at 60.7. Our lowest funded score.
Okay.
That's interesting to me that McCormick is like second to lowest average score that we had in there. But their percentage is higher than that.
Because it can ask for so little.
Yeah.
When you get down there.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, you're fine.
One thing to, just as a point of conversation that we ran into last year and previous years, not that we compare previous years, but as we come out of the pandemic, operating budgets have fluctuated greatly for many of the organizations, specifically performing arts organizations, as they rebuild their audiences. So the eligible ask has been less than it has been in previous years, because that operating budget might not be as high as it has been in previous years as well. So that eligible ask is a big part of what they could qualify for.
Crazy thought, since we are short $9,000, is there any validity to saying if you didn't score 66 and above, you don't get funded.
Right, that's what I argue for all the time.
There was a bit of a discussion.
It's like discussion.
Really
Yeah.
well.
I will say you had 4 organizations from your discussion last time, or you discussed 6 organizations. You decided to toss 2 of them, but 4 were to keep for today's discussion. Of those 4, 3 are your lowest here. So,
You could
discussion
say
for,
at not 65 and below. What is that value, the total there between?
It's better than 66.
Yes,
Yeah.
65.
65 and a half.
It's about $10,000.
Yeah.
I think there's 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and that 9,000.
Yeah.
9.
Well, way to go, numbers lady.
additional things to think about. We are budgeting conservatively based on a flat budget. It is potential that we will have more money. You will have more money to allocate in the coming months.
So if we had more money to allocate, could we come back and add those under 64 if we wanted to?
If it's the will of the committee, yes.
Okay.
Is that a wiser thing to do, Lindsay, the way you have to take it to council as opposed to doing add-ons? Because
Realistically,
basically
yeah.
you would be denying people and then going back.
I think part of the explanation that we got before the Q&A was that we might know, by the time we're ready to take this to council, we
Okay,
may already know what the fluctuation
so we
will
can
be.
make
Will be
a motion
motion
contingent on
okay.
that.
Yeah.
Okay.
You also have the option of artist access grants got pushed back, so you could earmark it towards that, and any leftovers could go wherever you decide. Because you presumably will have a contingency plan for leftovers of artist access no matter what. So you could just volley that into that pool.
For our ones, we've had significant discussions over and significant issues with. And I personally would be okay if we want to do a 65 minimum.
So we got a motion?
Well, no.
Discussion, but it's.
Okay, would you prefer to do that?
How technical you all want to get?
That was very technical, and I like
I mean,
Okay, so would you make a motion?
How do I do that?
Well, everybody 65.
I move to make 65 a minimum.
George. Did I hear a second? See how? Okay, now it's open for discussion.
Okay,
Go.
thank you.
Not a call for.
No,
We're
discussion, then vote.
discuss and then.
That was a test.
Okay.
Did we pass?
Robert's rules of order.
Yeah.
My next.
Column as stands now is 9,000 over.
Correct.
Okay.
So if we removed everybody below 65, you would have a little bit extra to throw at someone else, but you'd be basically on budget.
Yeah.
Or we could use it to make some more round numbers.
Right, right.
Go ahead.
Yeah,
It could
well,
be
I
20.
just, this might be just more wrenches in the works, but I have to ask. I don't feel like I got clear consensus in the group if PBS Kansas and KMUW are arts and cultural organizations at their core.
So that'd take care of your 9+.
Sure would. And I don't have an answer one way or the other. I want to hear more from others about it, but
So what would happen, since we have a motion and a second on the floor, is if we wanted to go back to that discussion, we could vote down this motion and then open up the other discussion, or we could table this, have the motion on the other 2, and then come back to take this motion up, correct? Help me out, Robert.
Yes.
But I think that's what we could do.
You could lower PBS Kansas and KMUW to $10,000 apiece and almost be at budget.
oh, that makes my heart happy.
Yeah, because I do feel like, again, especially in regards to KMW, it is a organization, even in its mission statement.
Yeah.
The primary thing it's informing on is arts and culture.
Yeah.
So I guess how do we try to pull that out of organization? I don't know.
Yeah, I would say, and related to that, Make ICT doesn't have arts or culture in their mission statement.
Correct.
And
To your
Oh,
point.
never mind,
about
never mind, take it back.
PCS, someone asked earlier how they came into the fold to begin with. And it was because staff encouraged them to apply. And I don't think we want to be in a position where staff is encouraging something and then the committee is saying.
My guess is they probably
You're not-
said, I have no control over.
I know,
They're a
but
wild committee. You never know.
I just don't know if it's worth the buzz that it will cause.
Motion to table that and address the other one?
We can't.
Then I would like to make a motion to table our discussion on making our cutoff line 65 and below and have a move to include PBS and KUW in the funding group.
To discuss what
To
we
discuss,
stay in
yes.
the funding group or not, okay. Is everybody clear on that? So we would table this and open up the discussion on PBS.
I will second his motion.
There we go, we got a second. See, I don't even have to do anything anymore.
Did we make a motion to talk about it? Is that what we did?
So we're gonna table this one
Sorry, no.
and go to the KMUW PBS. No, you're fine. You're fine.
Now vote.
So, thoughts on? Oh, yeah. All those in favor, I'm sorry, all those in favor, any discussion on that? All those in favor of tabling the initial motion to discuss PBS and KMUW, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Any abstentions? All right, let's go to PBS and KMUW. You want to take them separately?
Yes.
Okay. So I'm just gonna start at the top with PBS, if that's okay with everybody.
Yeah.
So. Thoughts, comments, discussion?
Staying in this discussion.
I'm not opposed to leaving that.
I am not opposed to leaving them in, but reducing the amount that they receive.
I would agree with that.
I do too.
Did we compare PBS to Exploration Place or was that? As far as like.
I
access?
believe it's like an like providing information.
Versus, yeah.
Because again, Exploration Place does do a lot dealing with art. It's not their primary
Well,
focus.
but arts and culture,
Culture.
Culture, true.
and they do create a lot of their own
Exhibits.
and things.
The culture part is where I get hung up on PBS and KVW myself.
Right.
Like, I think KVW has a little bit more room for the arts, but then I get into, is that a program of your organization versus the true core of it, which is what qualifies you? Okay.
Yeah, because I'm right there. And in my initial, when we initially turned in for the last time before we did Q&A, these were two that I don't know that they fit, but that, I just don't know that they fit.
from a mission statement perspective and the nonprofit status, like they check the boxes, but have they done a good job in selling that narrative to the committee? I think that's maybe,
I think
to
that-
Martha's point, like staff can handle tomatoes if the committee chooses to do whatever you want to do, but they would be an eligible applicant based on the existing plan.
And that I think is gonna be one of the most important things, when it comes to whether or not, if we're considering whether or not they're an arts and cultural organization. If they check the box everywhere else, and they are mentioning in the application that they're dealing with arts and culture, then where does that fall off?
I mean, it's a good point. You wouldn't have gone to them if they didn't check the box.
Yeah, I mean, their mission statement is pretty much verbatim what our cultural plans mission statement is.
Right.
To enrich our community with quality arts and cultural and educational programs and services that contribute to lifelong learning. That's their mission statement. Whether they've demonstrated how they execute that mission in the rest of their grant, that's on their shoulders to provide the committee with enough information.
So nobody wants to hear this, but I'm gonna throw it out there anyway. I think there's a number of organizations that under that same realm, that their mission statement does not check the box.
Right.
But clearly
But
are
they-
doing arts and culture that we're funding. And so is that a trigger that yes, they get in or no, they don't get in? Which I think is a whole nother
And I think that's,
conversation, but
that's a discussion we have to continue to push as it arises, because, I think it's gonna be a little back and forth every time.
I think though, if it's a matter of a literal interpretation of a mission, I would argue there are probably arts organizations on here that we are not questioning whether or not we're gonna fund, but probably don't have a mission statement that really speaks to art and culture.
that's spot on.
True.
But
And I think if we were going to throw any organization out, it should have been done before the Q&A. Or before we even accepted the application,
so
not
in,
in step 3.
We did that too.
We did,
we
right,
did some of that, but
but we didn't exclude any of them that we've talked about today.
But they didn't come to us. I mean, they weren't presented to the committee either. So then that gets back to what you want your process to look like next year. Because I would agree with you, Martha. I would hate for somebody to go through all the work of filling out the application, although I don't think it's a tough application, but I write grants, so you know.
Yeah.
I don't think it's but to have to fill out the, if they weren't gonna fit, they should have been told back here, you weren't gonna fit versus after you've gone through Q&A.
It's a lot of work to pull all the information together
Exactly.
for a grant and for them to do all that and then go, oh, sorry, you know.
I'm sorry, you don't qualify.
Okay, who makes the decision? Does committee make the decision? We use to base the decision on. We don't have the application.
We have in the past made the decision. So there are some that I will use that will come to them, staff is saying, yeah, Beth, what do you think? And I say, no, I don't think it fits. And they'll go back. There have been some where I've gone, not this step, but there are in prior steps where I said, that needs to go to committee.
Well,
It's a gray enough area
Yeah.
that needs to go to committee.
if it's clear, staff will did reject one still. It's very clearly not a qualified applicant. But if it's unclear, we send it to y'all.
I'm not sure we had a full committee at the time though, but you did bring Candy W to us with the question about how it worked and if they could be at the table because Ulrich was at the table. And at the time I did say, I wonder if they qualify because of the organization. And the answer was, we deal with that after the applications are in. So.
And in hindsight, we probably should have dealt with it then, but yeah.
But it's hard to do because they provide
Right.
a lot of information in the application to
Right.
consider.
And that's where the hang up is, because again, I don't think we would have, if we had seen them, I don't think we would have eliminated them from the beginning, because when they register as a nonprofit, it's arts and cultural.
Yeah.
And, they do provide arts and cultural programming. The only question, I think the biggest thing right now is whether or not we believe they provide enough arts and cultural program for us to keep them on, not necessarily whether or not they are. Because again, that's what they check off if they're nonprofit.
It's like, is it a program of, or is it that their focus?
Right.
Is their focus arts and culture, or is it a program of?
And that's again hard, because then you start to look at percentages, right? And so like how much of their program, because I'm pretty sure we can say just based on what we saw there that they have enough arts and culture to say like, if this is how I look at it, if they were to eliminate all arts and culture from their current programming, how much would be left? Would they still be able to continue to function and operate at a high percentage?
I think about recently, like the Kansas Sprint grants. We had a number of organizations here in town that went out for those Sprint grants, and a number of those organizations got $0 from those Sprint grants. So it's not like, I mean, as somebody who writes grants occasionally as well, you know, you go into every grant hoping you're going to get $1 million, but you know, it's not uncommon for somebody to come back and say, yeah, we're not funding you.
I get that something is better than nothing.
Yeah.
But if I were PBS or KMUW, a decision maker, a board member, and I was applying for $75,000 for the first time from the city of Wichita, and I end up with 10,000, I sure wouldn't apply next year. It's not worth $10,000.
It's a drop in the bucket.
It is.
I understand.
It's a
that.
lot of work.
It's a lot
Even
of
though
work.
it's easy for.
It's if you do it all the time and you've got access to it.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
The other thing I look at with these two organizations is, and I alluded to this earlier, but how does the arts and cultural community look without them? Based on what they provided in that application and things that they've done, how does the arts and cultural community look without these organizations providing the arts and culture they provide,
We have arts and culture and nobody knows about it. That's what it will look like
right?
From
In
KMUW
both
standpoint.
from KMUW standpoint and to a certain
But also
degree
from
also
PBS.
from PBS because
Yeah.
they do a lot of promotions for.
True, you're right, you're right. I was thinking about the children's area.
That's what I think.
Well,
back
but,
to
you know,
lowering
even the
amount.
PBS programming for
Yes,
children
you're
is
right.
important.
So if we lower the amount as a way of like maybe penalizing them for not being 100% arts and culture focused, but they still mostly fit it, they do still check the box and they are, like, what would they be without those programs, or is that part of what they do? So that's where I'm at, just lower the amount and say, I don't know, it's been a better, I'm fine next year.
But I think to Ann's point, if Ann is saying we would have it, nobody would know about it, to me, that says they are a media promoting outlet and not an organization of art and culture. And that's what we rely on them for. And I guess back to Lindsay's original thing, did they make the case? They did not make the case to me that they weren't the media outlet promoting art as much as they have elements of what they do, and it's very high quality. But overall, I am not convinced.
Yeah, I don't think it's an issue of quality of organization or product. It's an issue, does this fit?
And
At least for me, does this fit?
when I look at KMUW, for example, and this is, again, based on what I'm seeing in the application, if I were to go by this application and say, what is this organization itself, not even the other organizations that rely on it, if this organization were to remove arts and culture from its programming, based on what I'm seeing, it wouldn't do very well. It doesn't look like it would continue to exist very long if it did not have the arts and cultural programming that it has.
And I think that's true more for KMUW than PBS Kansas.
Right.
Based on the application and I feel like the conversation that we've been having, KMUW produces a lot more of that original content that speaks to arts and culture in our community, I think.
Right.
It's so interesting to me that PBS scored so much better.
Well, because it's
Thinking about
an
that.
application.
Well, and then I'm like, gosh, well, how, maybe we need to rethink the application, but that's like a whole nother goal.
Yeah. But that's a huge part of it for me. For either of these organizations, if we were to remove arts and culture, could they survive? And I don't think KMUW could without arts and culture.
I think Cindy should repeat what she said, because I started this discussion with, I think they should stay in, and I'm convinced now they should not be in.
Well, I think I was reacting to Ann's comment that what I think we were saying was if either one of or both of them went away, we would still have a robust art and culture community in Wichita, but people would not know about it. Which then I hear and interpret as the primary role they play is not being a producer of art and culture, but being a promoter of art and culture, which I don't think is what this program is.
Well, okay.
And I would just say that the second part of that is, I don't think in my read of either application, I was convinced that they were more a producer of art and culture than a media outlet promoting.
Is that explicit in what makes them qualify though? Like, are we making that up? That they have to be a producer?
It says that they, Why can't I think of our mission? You think I'd have it in heart?
They must demonstrate and document excellence in quality artistic and cultural programs, professional artistic and administrative staffing, financial stability, and their contribution to the community at large.
But it has to align with our mission, and our mission says the development of performing.
This to encourage and provide financial support to the arts and cultural organizations that demonstrate and document excellence in quality and artistic. Well, in quality, artistic and cultural programs.
Yeah, but if you look at the question, it asks, it's like question number 3 on
The
our grid,
application itself.
on the matrix, it has to align with the mission of arts and culture. So good.
I don't think we can exclude them based on that, right? Because then the Public Library Foundation does too. As friends of the Great Plains Nature Center, which again is, I know we've had that question a lot, but they don't make stuff where, you know, they support it.
And I could argue also the KMUW does provide culture.
Well, I think we need to have a definition of culture
Yeah.
too. but
Yeah.
that's another-
Yeah.
Definitely agree they're quality organizations.
Yes, that's
Yeah.
not the issue. The issue is, do they fit in this funding stream?
I think they fit. That's what I just think.
They can fit and you still can choose. not to
Right,
fund them.
Yeah.
right, or we give them less, or just also
Yeah.
where I'm at, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm gonna give everyone something.
Even without giving, that's what we can.
Much easier. You have a pot of money, you have a number of applicants, you divide it by the number of applicants and everybody gets a little bit.
But that's why I like at least a scoring number. So I'm glad we're having a conversation on these.
Yeah, and that's why I'm good with having this back and forth on this conversation. I think it's important that we have this discussion right now.
Well, especially since this is the first time either one of the organizations have ever applied.
Right.
Not to make it like more difficult to make this decision. So that first part I read was the mission of the cultural funding program that's in the application and process itself. But then that paragraph ends with the objective is to provide fiduciary support to exemplary organizations which contribute to the quality of life and add to the economic growth and vitality of our community. And I think
That's
By
everybody.
that definition, it would,
if the objective of the program is to invest in organizations that add to the vitality of our community, I think.
We gotta rethink everything.
However, have they demonstrated it? Have they made the case? Are you buying what they're selling? That,
They are a 501c3, which would be different than KTV.
Right.
Yes,
Right.
but I'm not speaking on PBS Kansas, which I am abstaining from. I'm speaking from the larger media organizations on how they operate in context of KMUW compared to paid. I would say an organization like they do operate substantially different on the programming and reflection they have back on the community at large and the things they choose to focus on, which we from a paid organization,
It's ROI.
it is very
That's
much
right.
ROI. Even though we use the public airways and are required to have some community engagement, it's not to the same level and more of a deeper understanding of what content and culture in our society are. I would argue that the content created by KMUW has a huge impact on our culture and is a reflection of our community as a whole.
to me, that does fit.
and that's fair.
And those
Yeah.
definitions. Need more for KMUW
Yeah.
than PBS. But still,
I think that's
I
where
still
it
think they
keeps,
fit.
yeah, it keeps leaning back. So, I mean, more KMUW than PBS, but I also think they both fit, in my opinion. I feel like they fit.
So let me just throw something that's clear off in another direction, since we don't have. I still think we're split.
I was ready to make a motion for one of them, but I can't.
I think we're still kind of split in that, well, go ahead and make your motion.
Since I am abstaining from one,
Throw the spaghetti against the wall.
I- move that we keep KMUW in for funding consideration.
Second.
I'm not sure I understand.
Me too, Siri.
Serious, like, dude, you're making a mistake.
Okay, we have a motion.
Did PBS call you that one?
In a second.
KMUW, in for funding consideration, and I think it had a second over here somewhere, second. Any discussion?
It's KMUW, not PBS.
That's what I mean,
Okay, okay.
KMUW, I'm sorry, if I said PBS.
Yeah.
KMUW in for funding consideration. Any further discussion? All those in favor, I'm gonna ask you to raise hands because I think it's gonna be split. Okay,
I think.
all right, then I'll go with it. All right.
And I am abstaining for the next conversation. I'm gonna leave the room, you guys. I'm gonna talk to Siri outside.
Oh, yeah, there's a Keurig machine right in
Perfect.
first door on the left.
Is there water out there too?
There's a water fountain in there or in my office or.
Okay.
So, what would you all like to do as it relates to PBS?
Can we make the same vote?
You can.
I'll second.
Okay,
Is that a motion?
Yeah, I move to make the same vote for PBS.
to include that? Okay, so, the motion on the floor that has been seconded is that PBS would be considered for funding, funding consideration. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say, well, all those in, we probably ought to do by hand again. All those in favor, raise your hand. All those opposed? Okay, motion carries. Tell Don that he needs to get in here. The heavy work is about to begin.
Do you want to go back to your table
Your table motion.
65 and lower?
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
I'm like, table, what's table? Okay, I got it.
Sit down.
Yeah, I'm trying to keep from having to take a little break here. Okay, so we have, if Don comes back, we have the motion now on the floor that was tabled, that will bring back on the table to cut anyone with a score of 65 or lower.
We have already sort of nominally cut anybody below 60, but for other reasons.
Right. So we're going back to the tabled motion to bring, to consider 65 as the cutoff point. Any further discussion on that motion?
Before we make that decision, can you bring up the numbers again for the adjusted?
Sure. So if we kept everybody as is and lowered everybody by the same percentage to get back to our budget, these would be the recommended numbers. And so for those small amounts, $40,
For the large ones that performed high.
300, you know, I mean, our highest one is $1,100.
Not some of them.
Yeah.
I mean, it lowers everybody by the same percentage.
Right, right.
That makes me a lot more comfortable.
That makes sense to me.
Me too. I think more than cutting.
And it's looking from the outside here, if we do this, we say 65, and then you look up and say, okay, you have one organization right higher, and they got $14,000.
Yeah. Well, and we can still talk about KMUW and PBS's amounts, right? Not
We can talk about all the.
Yeah.
Right now, it's whether we want to cut off those below 65. That still allows us to
Yeah.
make modifications where we deem necessary.
Yeah, I just wanted to bring up this discussion before we make that vote to make sure that we
Right.
understand that there is another option, right?
Everyone clear? Are we ready for a vote? All those in favor of eliminating scores of 65 or lower, raise your hand. All those opposed? Motion carries. So we're back to looking at all.
Motion.
Fails.
Oh, motion fails, I'm sorry. So, we're back to looking at all.
Do you want this back in the by size and then by score, or would you prefer to keep it here?
I think they want it by score looking at head nods.
Okay,
I honestly like this. I mean, the organization is losing a whole lot. And it's still, it makes it extremely close to what we all are averaging anyway.
I agree.
I agree.
give me a moment, I can give you the percentages back.
About the rounded numbers, do we like those?